think I got mine. It's just a huge looking old man.
Good evening. Welcome.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we thank Thee this evening that we could be here together as Mayor and City Council for Safford and also the citizens and staff. And please help that Thy Spirit might be with us to make good decisions and help the progress of the city. We thank Thee for all our many blessings, especially in this time of Christmas. And we say these things in Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Vice Mayor Richard Ortega. Thank you, Assistant City Manager Doug Hill. Appreciate that. That's going to bring us to citizen comments on non-agenda items. And before I have you come up to the top or the front to speak, I want you to know that we've allowed. I've opened it up for 5 minutes discussion. 3 minutes is just not enough time. And then up on the screen you'll see a timer, and the timer will start counting down. I want you to be very respectful of the time, please. And at 5 minutes, we're going to start cutting you off. Okay? So please try to keep it within 5 minutes. And then when addressing the council, be respectful and keep all your comments to the council and not the staff. And also, please stay on topic of what you come up to talk to us about. Stay on topic and don't veer off into Never Never Land. Okay? So with that, I'm going to ask on a non-agenda item. And our agenda items, I'm going to have those pulled during the actual agenda. So on our non-agenda items, I have Kyle. Will you please come up? And when you get up to the podium, will you please state your full name and your address, please? And we'll start the time. As soon as you address your full name and your address, the time will start.
Kyle Fisher Bauman, and 7628 West Julie Drive, Glendale, Arizona 85308. And earlier this year, I was driving in this direction, about 20 miles outside of town, I think, and I had gotten tired, and I think I was caused to pass out in a way. Once I had pulled over to the side of the road and kind of put the car in park or whatever, and when I woke up, there was somebody there who looked like a police officer. I think their vehicle said Safford, and their name patch or whatever said Clough, as far as I recall, T. Clough. And at first it was kind of like, hey, is it okay? And he was like, hey, you can go on, or something like that. And anyways, I thought I was too cold, and we ended up talking about it, and he called an ambulance to get me checked out. I thought I needed to warm up before I kept on driving. The ambulance checked me out, said as far as they could tell, everything was okay. The only thing I can remember that maybe one of two things that I could have changed was when they said, was it induced? I was like, no, because they were asking me, like, were you on drugs or whatever? No, nothing like that. And in retrospect, it might have been induced somehow, but not like drugs or anything like that. After that, I talked a little bit to the officer person, and one of the things he was saying was something like, something's really weird here. And if you're telling me there's something embarrassing, like you want to have sex with a man or something like that, that's not, we deal with that all the time, but something's really weird here. And I was like, I thought sex with a man would be weird. I'm a man. And one of the things he said right before he released me, like not very many seconds before he released me, was, Kyle, you've got 3 options. And it was something like, you can go back to Safford in a patrol car, something like that, or in an ambulance, or you can tell me that you're going to Safford to try to have sex with Chuck Gatwood. And I was just like, I have no options. And it was just kind of like, anyways, so I held there, and after waiting however many seconds, like, he's like, okay, you can go. Anyways, so I ended up getting back in my car. I had warmed up by then, drove into Safford, and went to the Graham County Courthouse. He pulled me over again. Didn't give me a ticket or anything, but pulled me over, he said, for turning the corner too tightly from Main onto 8th Ave. And I just was going to the courthouse. Anyways, he said some stuff that he had said he called Chuck and said that supposedly Chuck said I was not supposed to be in town or something like that. And the thing that got me was you have 3 choices or 3 options. And I tried getting the body cam footage from the police department. I went there quite a few times, maybe half a dozen times over a period of time or so. And they gave me different answers. Sometimes it was, you've got to have somebody redact it. Then it was like the captain needs to review it. Then it's the captain and the chief need to review it. Then it's something, and at some point it was, we can give it to your lawyer, but not to you. And I'm like, dude, I'm trying to get this data so that I can explain to somebody something wrong happened. And when I finally ended up talking to somebody who was a deputy sheriff's deputy, he said, no, he's got to give it to you. And when I went to the police department the next time, they said, well, you got to go over to City Hall and pay for it. So I went over there. They said, it's $150. And so I was like, well, what are you going to do? So I gave him my credit card, authorized $150 payment. Did they actually run it? I'm not sure, but $150, gave me the disc. They gave me 28 minutes, and it ends when the ambulance arrived, as far as I can tell. And basically it's like, what do I do? Maybe the guy turned the body cam off, but it seemed to have missed it. And when it comes right down to it, I've tried to talk to lots of different people. When I talked to the city manager last week, one of the last things he said was, oh, got to talk to my chief. And that sounds about right to me. Anyways, long story short, I talked to somebody today who looks kind of like that guy, said he was the chief, hadn't met him before. I thought the chief looked like something a little bit different. Anyways, yeah.
Okay.
I guess in summary, I hope that it'd be easier to get body cam footage, and I really hope that somebody can look through the entire day's worth of stuff just in case Clough was acting out so that something else could be caught. Because if he was a third party, maybe he needs the body cam footage to be reviewed for some other purpose so that law enforcement can get it without it being listening in sort of
All
stuff.
right. Kyle, thank you. As you know, that's because it's a non-agenda item, we cannot have any communications back with you, but you coming here today has got the attention, and so we'll go with it from there, and I hope you enjoyed your stay at Safford at least. I can't ask that. I'm sorry. My bad. I'm violating my own rule. Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. Chair Paul David, would you please come up? And your name and address as well, please.
Good evening. Paul David. I live at 953 West 16th Street in Safford. And I'm here. I sent earlier this afternoon, I sent an email to the city manager, John, regarding a permit issue up on Mount Graham. And just briefly, the Bible college, or the Bible camp, the lease expired on that a number of years ago. And they've applied to have a 20-year lease reissued for it. They can't get it renewed because it expired. And the Center for Biological Diversity is opposed to just about anything on the mountain that has to do with structures that and people and interference with the wildlife. So our board supervisor is going to meet on Monday. We're I'm here to solicit, or at least to have you consider an individual letter or letter as a city encouraging the U.S. Forest Service to reissue that permit. And the reason that I am here advocating that is that the other leases on the mountain, the cabin owners at Columbine, at Turkey Flat, the Forest Service, even the telecommunications equipment at Heligraph are all on the mountain with a lease. And if the Center for Biological Diversity can expand the habitat for the threatened and endangered species and have that permit denied, then that kind of, to me, it sets in motion a precedent where when the other permits come up for renewal, certainly the cabins, that they would use that precedent of we need to expand the habitat for the threatened and endangered species and get these people off the mountain and return it to its natural condition. That's kind of a slippery slope. And so I have a conflict of interest because I've got a cabin on the mountain, but there's lots of people like Mountain Graham Market and some of our sporting goods stores, grocery stores depend on the visitors to the mountain for livelihood, and it's a great tourist draw, a great tourist attraction. So in summary, just consider possibly a letter of support. Mr. Casales has the information, and hopefully if enough people can respond, they will. That their proposal is to reissue it, but we know that the Center for Biological Diversity is going to oppose it very strongly, and it's on. And we just need to win this battle, and then we'll be able to keep our other leases. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. Okay, that'll bring us to item 7, presentation of the Graham County Substance Abuse Coalition. Kathy? Kathy, once again, I want you to know that we appreciate all of your hard work. It doesn't go unnoticed.
Thank you.
And we are making a difference one day at a time.
That's what we're working for, absolutely. Good evening, Mayor Couch, Safford City Councilmen, and community members. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight on my concerns related to the sale of recreational marijuana. As many of you probably already know, Graham County was one of 3 counties in Arizona that voted no during the election, with the other 2 being Apache and Navajo counties. For this reason, I would like to advocate for strict laws and ordinances in Graham County to protect the residents, especially our youth. Science shows that the more a child is subjected to advertisements of alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana, it lowers their perception of harm and they are more likely to use. We also know that the younger that a child uses drugs and alcohol, the more likely they are to be lifelong users. And the most important is that the young teen brain does not fully mature until they are 25 years old. And with regular drug use, brain cells are destroyed, IQs are lowered, affecting the opportunity for these young people to thrive and meet their full potential. For these reasons, I would like to see strict ordinances, for example, with the advertising to be established throughout Graham County. Recently, the medical marijuana dispensary had characters painted on their windows using marijuana products. They included Santa, the reindeers, elves, etc., who were clearly under the influence of their products. When the dispensary was first established, we were assured the dispensary was just there to help people with medical or mental issues, but what I'm seeing now is that the proposition has passed. The true reasons they are selling is to promote getting high. Over the weekend, the pictures were changed, and now the characters are eating cookies and other treats. I would assume that anybody that has knowledge of marijuana use will link these pictures to edibles, which is still promoting their products. Many other cities and towns in Arizona have already addressed these issues and have moved forward to establish and restrictions to protect their residents. The town of Gilbert actually has some of the strictest restrictions. It's still illegal to buy or sell weed anywhere in town except for its only medicinal dispensary. The council voted to limit sales to medical marijuana dispensaries that also have a license to sell recreational weed. which means that likely we won't see an influx of new options soon or any storefronts specifically dedicated to selling recreational marijuana. Chandler, Mesa, and Scottsdale also voted in the same restrictions, and so did the towns of Oro Valley and Sarita. For example, when it comes to alcohol advertising, restrictions prevent first. Alcohol Policy Resource Center reports that alcohol advertising restrictions reduce the exposure of children and adolescents to alcohol. The FAA acknowledges that the advertising of alcohol promotes unrealistic messages about use. Restrictions on alcohol advertising include any policies that limit advertising alcohol beverages, such as limits on alcohol and placement of messages. The Federal Alcohol Administration Act gives the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau the authority to regulate the advertising of alcohol beverage industry and for the protection of consumers. The Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau defines as advertising as any written or verbal statement, illustration, or depiction. Examples include ads in newspapers or magazines, trade booklets, menus, etc. Additionally, this includes billboards, signs, or other outdoors displays. Communities can play an active role in monitoring the alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana industries and can limit the glorification of these substances to our youth. Our future generations are counting on us to protect them. We are making choices that may directly affect them in the future. By lowering our standards and allowing these companies to lure our young people to using these products, we are letting them down. Thank you for your time and consideration to my request. Do you have any questions for me?
Kathy, it was funny, I was at church and I heard something about this, and then I got the call from you on Monday and went and met with them, and I guess we got it changed a little bit.
Yes.
But I once again, I was complete shocked that we didn't have anything, and I called our city attorney and asked. I said, I need some help as well and stuff, and so it's funny is we have lots of stuff for tobacco
Yep.
and
Yep.
alcohol,
Yep.
but when it comes to this, it's almost like it's just that part of advertisement just got overlooked.
Right.
And so it's definitely
Right.
something that should be addressed statewide as well as, I was in, I can't even say I laugh about this because as I drove by and saw, I was like, that's just a little too much.
Too much.
You
Absolutely.
know, stoned pole, and then of course the character's all jacked up.
Right.
Just to me, I agree with you in the sense of the reason for this is the medical marijuana dispensary, and not just a place to come in and, I don't want to see Santa Claus getting high,
Nope, not at all.
and I definitely don't want to see the reindeers all jacked up either. They got to get that jolly man somewhere.
That's right.
What about the elves?
Well,
Can't do
the
it if
elves
they're
too,
stoned.
yeah, but
They can't wrap presents if they're stoned.
that's right. Arnold?
Anything?
I was wondering what they're handing out, so presents on Christmas with what you showed up here, so
Yeah.
I'm sure the mayor will have more information on what else he found out for us.
We'd be happy to partner with you on writing ordinances or gathering information on ordinances in other areas. We just want to protect our youth. We want to give them their chance to be a kid and not have to be thinking about drugs and alcohol. We already have enough of that. We need to give them a chance to grow and be who they want to be and not let these things get in their way. But on a positive note, the House of Hope is going strong. We moving forward. We're real excited. It should open about in March. Should be completed February, middle of February. And so on a positive note, we have that. So we are working hard on, trying to help people so they can overcome their drug addictions and become functional residents of Graham County. So
Perfect.
Thank you for listening to me.
Any other questions for Kathy? Kathy, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we're going to open up a public hearing. The hearing will be in compliance with Arizona revised statutes and to hear public comments regarding the request for the council to rezone application for Graham County parcel 101-14003E. Susan, you want to explain that a little bit more?
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. The Planning and Community Development Department is in receipt of an annexation application from Jerry and Sharon Trust, Scott trustees of the Scott Trust. The .93 acre property is located directly south of 1615 South First Avenue, and the City Council did hold a public hearing on the annexation portion of this at their September 14th meeting. As part of the annexation process, the City of Safford must adopt a zoning classification that permits densities and uses not greater than those permitted by the county. Currently, the property is zoned General A land use, which allows one residence with a minimum lot size of 1 acre. City of Safford AR Agricultural Residential District allows one conventional and manufactured dwelling per lot with a minimum size of 1 acre. The AR district allows for densities and uses not greater than those permitted by the county. Per the zoning ordinance, the applicant is required to hold a neighborhood meeting on the rezone prior to going before the Planning and Zoning Commission. A meeting notice along with the rezoning application was mailed to all property owners within 150 feet of the property. The meeting was held on November 10th at 6 p.m. at the Safford Annex Building. One member of the public attended the meeting, and you have minutes should be part of your packet. Again, part of this goes over the general plan and being in conformance with the general plan requirements. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation, the Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing at a meeting on November 30th, 2020. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to recommend that City Council approve the Scott rezone application number Z-07-20, finding that the zoning classification is the closest zoning classification that permits density and uses not greater than those permitted by Graham County, and also citing general plan goal number 14. And staff is recommending that City Council to rezone Graham County parcel 101-14-003E from Graham County General A land use to City of Safford AR Agricultural Residential District for the following reasons. The zoning classification is the closest zoning classification that permits densities and uses not greater than those permitted by Graham County, and the zoning request is in conformance with general plan goal number 14. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any. Also, as a reminder, it is a public hearing in case somebody in the public has any comments.
Anybody from the public want to speak? Council?
Sir. Sure.
Go ahead.
What I read from the planning and zoning, they had pretty good discussion about it, and is it their intent mainly to get it zoned so that they can be annexed? That's the main reason?
Councilman Couts and, Mayor Couts and Councilman Lopez, actually, in order to, when you annex a property into the city, then you have to apply city zoning to that property. So you can't have a property be annexed into the city and then continue with county zoning. It has to have a city zoning applied to it. That's part of the Arizona revised statutes for annexation.
So this classification is what you came up with to make that happen, because it could change tomorrow depending on what goes forward.
Yes, this is the closest that we have on our books to the county zoning classification, and that's what you're required by the Arizona revised statutes to do.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. And again, there's no action item on this. That'll come later with the reading of the ordinances.
So then, to get it into the City of Safford limits, we have to supply all the entities, is that correct?
As far as notification,
No, as far as like all the utilities.
yes, once it gets annexed in, then all of that will be notified. Yeah, once we go complete the annexation process and complete the 30-day waiting period, there's numerous entities that we're required to notify.
Well, wasn't there somebody at the meeting that, supported this after hearing about it? If we'd hook up sewer to them or something, did I read that in there?
Mayor Couts and Vice Mayor Ortega. Morgan, do you want to address the conversation about the utilities on this particular piece of property?
Mayor and council, this specific location is, there's two parcels. One is within the city limits, one is in the county. In order to serve the one that's in the county, which is the larger portion of the lot that they want to build on, the requirements are different. And then, so in order to get around that, we propose this option to them to annex in and then join those two parcels into one to make it clean and easy for us. In regards to the sewer, I don't remember any conversation. The closest sewer to that location is on the north side of the CBUS building.
And maybe it was the water. There was,
No,
It was-
you're right, Vice
You're
Mayor.
right, that's what I read.
Joe Cueto stated that he
Yeah.
would agree to rezone if the city of Safford ran a sewer line to his property.
yeah.
I'm like, holy cow, if we're gonna capture somebody that wants to pay all that money for a sewer line, I'd be hooking them up. That's money in the bank. So, I don't know, that's just my thoughts, as Vice Mayor brought up as well, is if we're going to be supplying them with all of our entities, then we really should think about picking up the other ones. You know, if this gentleman wants to pick it up, I know if they're in the county, he wants to pick it up, that's $50, you know, depends on how much water they use, and then it also helps our influence. It also puts more water in our lines, which we're always asking for, so.
If the council is interested in extending that sewer main, then we would definitely want to present to the council the option and how much it would cost for us to do that. I believe it would be pretty extensive.
Go ahead.
You mentioned where the sewer ends. How far approximately would that be from the property we're talking about?
Mayor, Councilman Sill, I believe it'd be about 100 to 200 feet. And it's within the ADOT right-of-way as well. You would be closing the lane down and excavating. I'm not too sure how deep that manhole is to the north of that property, so we'd have to find out if there's enough fall that would make it to that property.
Well, when the one person suggested I'll vote for it if you hook me up to the sewer, I didn't see any response from planning and zoning, so it's something that doesn't have to happen right away.
Yeah, I don't remember any discussion with the sewer. It was all about water.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Last call for the public. Not, we're gonna go ahead and close the public hearing and reconvene as Board of Adjustments. This is probably my first Board of Adjustments. So we're going to see what Mrs. Anderson has for us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, functioning as the Board of Adjustment, I guess is how I should address you. This is a request for the Board of Adjustment to hold a public hearing and approve an appeal request from Ponderosa Aviation from the 2015 Building Code Amendment that requires automatic fire sprinkler systems to be installed in all new structures having a total floor area exceeding 7,500 square feet. The applicant plans to add a 10,000 square foot hangar at the Safford Municipal Airport and is requesting an appeal of that amendment for this particular structure. In 2017, the City Council updated their existing adopted 1994 codes and adopted the 2015 International Building, International Residential, Mechanical, Plumbing, Flue Gas, Fire Code, and Existing Building Code, and the 2014 International Electric Code. The international codes are updated every 3 years, and it is up to local jurisdictions to decide if they want to update the versions of the codes they are following. Jurisdictions may also amend the adopted codes by adding additional requirements, modifying and/or removing specific requirements. For the 2015 International Building Code, the City Council decided to continue a provision that was initially adopted in 1975. The 1975 adoption required automatic sprinkler systems to be installed in any commercial building when the total floor area of the story exceeds 7,500 square feet. The specific language that became effective in July 2017 reads as follows, and you have that as part of your packet. It states automatic fire sprinkler systems shall be required for occupancy areas of all new structures having a total floor area exceeding 7,500 square feet. Automatic sprinkling systems shall be required for occupancy areas within existing structures when building addition or alterations result in a gross floor of 7,500 square feet or more, when modifications within existing buildings affect 7,500 square feet or more of the total floor area. This provision shall not exempt those structures or occupancies for which the currently adopted edition of the International Building Code requires automatic fire sprinkler systems or automatic fire extinguishing systems for structures and occupancies with total floor areas less than 700 or 7,500 square feet. Section 113 of the 2015 International Building Code has a provision by where a Board of Appeals, in the case of the City of Safford, the Board of Adjustment can hear and decide appeals or decisions or determinations made by the building official relative to the application and interpretation of this code. And they must follow one of the following: that the true intent of this code or the rules legally adopted have been incorrectly interpreted, the provision of this code does not fully apply, and an equally good or better form of construction is proposed. Ponderosa Aviation is proposing a 10,000 square foot structure classified as a Group S1 occupancy, which includes an aircraft hangar with storage and repair. According to the 2015 International Fire Code and the 2016 National Fire Protection Association standard on aircraft hangars, the aircraft storage building they are proposing requires an automatic fire sprinkler system only when the square footage is 12,001 square feet or greater. Additionally, the City of Safford is unable at this time to supply sufficient water pressure to support an automatic fire sprinkler system. Staff is recommending that the Board of Adjustment approve the appeal request from Ponderosa Aviation, allowing them to construct a 10,000 square foot aircraft hangar that exceeds the automatic fire sprinkler system's requirement for structures exceeding 7,500 square feet, finding that 1, the 2015 International Fire Code and the 2016 National Fire Protection Association standard on aircraft hangars used as a Group S1 occupancy requires an automatic fire sprinkler system only when the square footage is 12,001 or greater. Also, the City of Safford at this time is unable to supply sufficient water pressure to support an automatic fire sprinkler system. You do have a copy of the application and the appeal letter as part of your packet. Also, this is a public hearing, so members of the public can comment on this request. And additionally, representatives from Ponderosa Aviation are here if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Speak? Well, come on up. This is the time. State your name and your address. Social security number if you want.
Let's see, Rick Britt, 8575 South Cheyenne, Safford. I'm a contractor involved with the airport. Aviation business is good for Safford. Aviation business is really good for Safford. I am, and I'm employed by jet crafters. I'm 100% for you working with this. If it sets a precedent for the next hangars to go in. Because the truth is there's not enough water pressure, as Susan was addressing. We can do the same things. If you grow the aviation business, it will be good for Safford money coming back to the city. This is just one precedent. I think there's some more coming, but for this one, yes, I'm all for it. Isidro Osias is all for it. If it sets a precedent where the next hangar goes in and we meet the same requirements, the same specifications, a 12,000 foot square building would be better than a 7,000 square foot building. We've dealt with this issue several times in the past 4 years. 7,500 square feet sounds big, but it's actually a little bit small when you're dealing with aircraft. They're they require a lot of space for maintenance and with the Cedro with painting. So, yes, sir, I'm gonna go with it. If it's a precedent that we can do the same thing down the road. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Anybody else from the public want to comment? Council?
There's still fire requirements from, say, like OSHA, aviation, when you're in there working on things anyway, I believe, isn't there?
Yeah, and it's based on the occupancy, so Mayor Couts and Councilman Lopez, that would be something that would be reviewed when plans come before the planning, before the city and the building department.
Thank you, ma'am.
And
I'm sure if you
again,
look back in the minutes, you'd see that I was a big, trying to get the 10,000 square foot rule raised in the city as a whole anyway. And I think 10,000 square foot was a good place to go with it. And I don't know that I'm in favor of a 12,001, you know, but I do think that we should up our 7,500 to 10,000. And of course, we can't even supply them water up there. And so, you know, truthfully, it's like, I think it's time that we reevaluate why we have 7,500 when we have a fire department that we have, with the capability that they have. That needs to be addressed as well, for our next, down the pipe coming. But, I'm in favor of them, building. I mean, John?
Mayor, council, members of council, staff has been having this conversation about water out there. And so one of the things that we've been looking into is what some alternatives are to get better water pressure out there. So we're actually in the process now of evaluating several options and trying to figure out, given our current situation and the money's available, how do we start to stage ourselves so that we can improve that? Because I think we've had conversations before, even under the CIP, where we talk about the airport as an opportunity for economic development. Well, if we don't even have basic utilities out there, it's not a very appealing option. So we are pursuing that right now to see if there's anything we can do in the shorter term that would allow us to have the required pressure, that would allow us to then have sprinklers go in and be able to actually be serviced. And then any options beyond that in terms of what are the needs of the airport as a whole and what do we have to do to get there. So we're already looking at that right now. Because as soon as this issue came up, apparently this has been an ongoing issue, and there's a capital project right now that's in the out years of the CIP that we may be moving forward to try and do something to address the pressure issue.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was gonna be part of the question that I had. Is it, the concern to me, and something we need to talk about, at some point, probably is how to improve the water pressure and the water situation out there, because if we don't have enough water to service a sprinkler system, do we have enough water to put out a fire in a 10,000 square foot hangar, with fire trucks? You know, that's what concerns me. And so I think at some point we need to have that conversation on what we do to improve the water system so that we can have the sprinkler systems, and so that if a fire were to happen, we'd be able to fight it adequately. It doesn't matter how good your fire department is if you don't have the water in order to put the fire out.
What did the fire chief have to say about it?
Mayor, Councilman McGuire, I didn't actually have a conversation with the fire chief, did you?
no, I did not. I did request that he be at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, but he was not there at that meeting.
I'd sure like to have seen his input.
I agree that this is an issue, but the whole reason for a sprinkler system is to catch it early and only use one sprinkler head or two sprinkler heads, which we do have enough water to supply. If you let it burn the 10 or 12 minutes it's going to take to get a fire department there with the fuels that are probably there, it's not salvageable at that time, no matter how much water you bring with you and what's supplyable there. So if we go this route, I think they need to know, and their insurance company needs to know, that we're not gonna save anything if they do catch it on fire. And I think there needs to be a hold harmless or something in there, because if we don't have what we call that off-duty fireman in there, which is what these sprinklers are, as soon as it gets 180 degrees or whatever they're designed to do, they notify somebody. If that part doesn't happen, that's really all that's for, is to notify somebody and then keep it cool while somebody gets there. But if that's not even there, we need to back up and just write it out and make sure that they write us a hold harmless, because we're not gonna save anything.
Mayor Couts and Councilman McGuay and the rest of the council, I just want to mention that I misspoke. This wasn't an item that went to Planning and Zoning Commission. This was actually just an item before you as the Board of Adjustment, Board of Appeals.
Yeah, just one comment. I'm all for building the airport, and so the comments that I made, I think, are to get us involved in conversations on how we can alleviate the water issue. I'm all for the airport expansion. I'm all for doing everything we can to bring revenue and jobs into the community. But if we have a serious issue, I think at some point we need to start addressing that. It sounds like you already have started that process.
Yes, we have.
Mr. Casella, what about water tanks and stuff like that out there? Water tanks and stuff like that out there? What about?
Well, Mayor Councilman Andazola, that's part of the discussion, is having a holding tank so that it would be able to provide enough water for a given period of time. There are standards that, it has to be able to supply a certain amount of water for a certain period of time. And so that's part of the discussion. It was interesting as we looked into this issue, the first hangar that was built out there, apparently this discussion was ongoing back then, and I don't know how long that hangar's been there, but there was some documentation about grandfathering, and then when the water became available, that we would then provide the water and they would retrofit the hangar and so on. And but it was kind of a surprise to me that in all this time, no one had ever gone back and readdressed that issue, because again, if we're looking at expanding the airport, hangars would be a very obvious way to do that. And if you can't supply the water there, then how do you build the hangars? So.
Well, there's quite a few hangars that have just been built within the last, 10 years? And are those that have been built, are they sprinklered?
Mayor Counts, I do not believe they are.
I know of one in the last 10 years, and that's the one that's written on the building permit that says at a future date, when water pressure does become available, that it would be retrofitted. I don't know quite how we'd be able to enforce that. It already has a certificate of occupancy. It was just a note that was written on the building permit itself.
And it is 10,000 too, correct?
I'm sorry?
How big is that?
It's over 7,500, so I think it probably is close to 10,000.
So we already have one. The council previous has already approved one of those.
It didn't go before the council as far as I'm concerned, or the
A
Board of
building
Appeals.
official made that decision?
That's my understanding back 10, 11 years ago.
Go ahead.
One other point also is that the use case for the hangars play a significant role. So in the case of aircraft, when they're working on aircraft, one of the concerns apparently is that if you use actual water sprinkler system, it destroys the avionics. So there has to be some other option sometimes in terms of whatever fire suppression system that you're going to use. So again, it's a very complicated system, and it's predicated on size and use. So again, sometimes even having a water sprinkler system may not be the answer, depending on whatever the use case is in the hangar.
But what they're asking for kind of tells us what they're going to do with the hangar. Correct?
Yep.
On the application, it tells us what they're going to do with the hangar. They're either going to have storage and they're going to have some offices, or or is it just going to be an open hangar?
According to their application, it's an S1 occupancy, which includes the storage of planes and some repair. And that's where, when we look at our current codes, as you know, codes change over the years and more issues get addressed, and particularly issues having to deal with fire and fire suppression. And so, probably since 1994, or maybe even since the 70s, when you first instituted the 7,500 square foot, the codes have changed. They do have different categories. Those categories do dictate, based on type of construction and what the use is, when fire suppression is required and when it's not, and they differ from our requirements.
So storage is airplane storage. Is that what you're assuming?
That's correct.
And then mechanic work is basically going to be in the exact same location. I mean, there's no divider wall between them, correct?
That's my understanding, but certainly representatives from Ponderosa Air are here. If you have any of these type of specific questions, they might better help you understand what they plan on doing.
Trent Nelson, Ponderosa Aviation. May I have it answer any questions, Mayor?
Sir?
Sir.
What'd you say?
Trent Nelson with Ponderosa Aviation.
And my question was, is the mechanic work going to be done in the exact same location as the storage facility?
It'll be multiple use. Right now, the plan is not to use it for maintenance, but down the road, it could be used for maintenance. Right now, it's going to be storage only. What brought it upon us was the fire code is 12,000 square feet, 12,001 square feet. So if the federal fire code is requesting this size, but the city council is going above and beyond requesting a smaller size, we're just trying to meet the national fire code. We're not trying to go above and beyond that. The sprinkler system does cause avionics issues. The fire suppression system on the foam is more corrosive. That's more of a concern than the water. One of the issues with a sprinkler system, you guys provide enough water to provide a sprinkler system, and that sprinkler system fails. That's where the issue comes in. With your system failing, that's when the concern with the insurance company comes in for that issue, not necessarily. If that airplane catches fire, you're done. It doesn't matter. But in that, anything we do with occupancy for offices down the road, offices that are utilized right now at the airport, they have your 2-hour fire barrier for occupied structures, if that makes sense.
Councilman Goy, that help answer anything?
Kind of what I was saying earlier. If we make them put a sprinkler system in and we can't operate it, we got to know that up front, and so does everybody else. And I know IBM in Tucson, when they built that factory out at Rita Road, they put in their own tanks, their own pumps. They had to bring their water system up. It was a little bit different. They were pretty technical, but they had to bring the system up in order to build out there. And I think, for us to, unless we're going to do a bunch of this, we can't upgrade the system just for this to make it work. So we got to go one way or the other, either.
And like Susan was saying, it's all by building code, right? So if let's say we're painting aircraft, that size of hangar for a fire suppression system is like 200 square feet to require a fire suppression system. Storage and maintenance per the fire code is 12,000 square feet or 12,001 square feet or larger. So depending on what you're doing in the hangar, if we were doing something different in the hangar other than storage or maintenance, like I said, it would be a different square footage per the fire code. But maintenance and storage is authorized at 12,001 square feet lower.
And I totally understand where you're seeing that, why that was written, and then the reason why Safford wrote 7,500 was to keep, of course, a Class 4 rating, and also because it's a volunteer fire department, and so all of that plays into that, is why we have that flexibility of massaging the code, if you may. So like I said, I'm still in favor of the 10,000. I'm definitely not in favor of 12,001, but I'm still in favor of that. And completely agree with what Councilman McGoy is stating and making sure that, you know, this sounds like it was done before by just staff, and now this comes before us to make this decision. And so that's interesting, how one time it was done this way and now this time it's done this way. That's very interesting. At least it is to me. Unless I'm the only one that's interested in that. Anybody else have anything else? This definitely asks for action item that we approve Ponderosa Aviation, their appeal request, so they can build this 10,000 square foot building with no sprinkler system.
So moved.
Second.
But do we,
Go ahead.
but are we in a different form right now?
It says it's an action item, so we get to.
And we vote in this form?
Yeah, and I think it'll be by individual. Yeah, it'll be individual votes. So, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on this item? All those in favor? I'm going to start with Councilman Gene Sill.
Aye.
Lopez?
Aye.
Aye.
Vice Mayor? McGoy?
Opposed.
And I say aye. Motion does pass. That brings us to adjourn as the Board of Adjustments, and we're going to reconvene as the regular scheduled meeting. Item 12.1, 20th Avenue traffic flow. Councilman Arnold Lopez, this is yours.
Yes, with the increased traffic on 20th Avenue, certainly between Relation and Golf Course Road, people trying to come out of the hospital, it's growing there. We have a upgrade of 20th Avenue coming up shortly. Citizens have expressed concern being able to get in and out of there. And so they've suggested traffic lights is what they've suggested. I don't know if that's totally the answer or not. I know that engineering has this on their mind and knows that this is in the near future. I was told when we do work on 20th Avenue and the upgrade that the infrastructure for such lights may be put in at that time. So we have to talk about it at one time, in some time, and I think that's kind of now with what the citizens show interest about. So I'd like to hear where we're at there, Mr. Henry.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman Lopez, and I appreciate you bringing this up. I think we've had a couple conversations about it. I did find that back in 2000, this 20th Avenue project's gone on for a long time, and I think it went back into the early 2000s, but back when it was originally hitting the ground design-wise, there was a traffic analysis, a warrant analysis done for this section of 20th Avenue. They did there was 9 warrants that they did for both Golf Course and 20th Avenue intersection, as well as Relation and 20th. And granted, keep in mind this was 7 or 8 years ago. But 20th and Relation met 2 of those warrants, which were, they have different warrants based on 4-hour volumes, 8-hour volumes, what's going on at the intersection. It barely met a couple of them, and we've had about a 2.5% increase in traffic is what I've found through the ADOT website and Segal website over the 7 or 8 years since this study's been done. But the controlling factor at those intersections is going to be the side streets. And if you look at 8th Street and 20th Avenue, there's a lot of traffic from both directions at those intersections. Relation doesn't bring in the volumes from the side streets that 8th does right now. I think that's going to be a controlling factor as far as warranting a traffic signal. You are correct in the fact that we are putting conduits across 20th and across Relation for that intersection for a future traffic signal. That's on the plans right now, and I've actually talked to the engineer about putting the same double conduits across Pepper Tree, Golf Course, and 20th there to make sure we've got whole boxes and conduit under there for a future. Who knows how long that would be. This warrant study said 2048 for Golf Course Road and less than that for Relation. But I think the idea, what we want to do is move forward with this the way we're going and do another traffic analysis after this project's done, because you and I both know that the flow is going to even increase more than it has over the last 4 or 5 years. That way we get an accurate study done with some new flows there, and then we'll have the infrastructure in place that we can hopefully get a warranted traffic signal to get some funding to help construct one. Otherwise, if it's not warranted, we could always do one on our city dime. It just would help to have a warranted project that we can hopefully get some highway safety money or something to help pay for it.
What does it cost to put in a light?
I went back and looked. I don't know exactly what the one like here at 8th Street and 20th was, but when we did downtown signals, those aren't as fancy and as big as these ones on the other, but we did about $400,000 to do all those lights on Main Street. So I'm guessing $250,000 roughly to do a signal. That'd be my ballpark.
I'm not familiar with the traffic study, but I go in and out of the hospital quite often, and it's very difficult, even with the number of lanes that we've got right now. It's difficult to get in and out of there a lot of times, and I imagine people that live on side streets up there would also have issues getting onto the street to go to town or otherwise. So I think it's something we definitely need to take a look at, and I don't know how much it costs to do it later than to do it now.
Well, this project, and just so you guys are aware, I'll be coming back to you with as we get a fine-tuned estimate for this project, I've got to come and get approval for we've got funding in place right now, grant funding, but the last estimate was above that, so ADOT won't even bid this project until we say we got the money to support anything above and beyond the construction estimate. So I can't add any more dollars to this project right now unless we're willing to just keep pumping money at it, but I honestly think, and I agree with you all, that we are going to warrant traffic signals for sure at 20th and Relation, and it's probably going to be shorter time than we think. We will have the infrastructure in place to run the conduits, put up the lights, and get those in place. I think we want to get this thing built, do another traffic analysis, and then move forward, is my honest opinion.
What does it take to do the analysis?
It's just we would just hire a firm to do a traffic study, and there's constant. SEGO actually measures traffic counts there, I think, yearly, and SEGO's website actually has current volumes there for average daily traffic for the whole year for different intersections, and you can go look at those and see what those volumes are. And so I wouldn't even want to guess what a study, but it wouldn't be that expensive to do a traffic analysis study.
We have had them before. You can't give us an estimate?
I don't know what this one cost back in 2012. I wasn't involved with it back then, so I could look that up and get that information out to you if you want to know what we paid for the original analysis. It might have been part of the original scope of work because the same company that started 20th Avenue Design did this study, so it might have been built into the original scope of work of design. But it should be broken out.
Isn't the street going to be four lanes?
Yeah, it's going to be extension of what's north of Relation. It's going to be extension of that same cross section.
All the way across from in front of the hospital, all the way to golf course.
All the way to golf course.
So as soon as they hit that should ease a little bit of pressure coming out of the hospital, I would think.
I would hope so with double lanes going across it. But, the volume's going to start going up as soon as people, it's gone up a lot in the last 5 years. I've seen it myself, even up by the Mayock and Public Works. There's a lot of cars that take that road. And
so if a street light was to be talked about putting in up there at golf course, whether you're saying it's warranted or not, that would definitely massage the traffic coming out of the hospital to get them in and out easier.
Well, anytime you put a controlled intersection, you are going to create those separations.
And to me, I absolutely despise keep giving monies to analysis. Seems like that's all we ever do. After my government time serving as mayor, that's one of the things I want to get into, because it's almost like the city always is giving money away to somebody that way. And I think that doing that, as what you said, you can't keep throwing money to this street, but yet we can. And if we feel like it's a big push that would help release the pressure in front of the hospital, I think that would be the best location to have the street light, not there on Relation Street and 20th. It would be best right there, because that's where your main traffic is coming, is they're diverting from Highway 191 down Discovery and coming across there. So I think we should really not have that mindset of, I don't want to throw any more money towards that, and say, what can I do to release the pressure from that hospital facility or Pepper Tree or wherever that is, because ultimately we already know that another care facility is going to be going in eventually. I mean, who knows? COVID could have slowed them down or stopped them from building. So if that does, that's another facility that's going to have people coming in and out of, which will even make that traffic control that much more tight. So Lance, I really think that instead of having that mindset, and I'm not getting after you, I'm just saying instead of having that mindset, it's like, okay, you guys, here's what it's going to cost. It's going to cost us an extra $300,000 to put a street light there. I would divert the money off of Relation Street and 20th. Let's put it up there. That's going to help release the traffic flow, and let's make this happen. Why this construction is going in, and it's going to change it a little bit. But I've seen the city throw money around quickly. You know, in fact, I signed a letter just the other day that gave us $5 million that we're going to be putting towards the wastewater or the water facilities now coming in. So we massage money constantly. That's just my thing. I think Arnold did bring up a good point and relaxing the pressure, and so did Councilman Seal, relaxing the pressure coming out of the hospital, especially knowing that we're going to have another facility down the pipes coming in as well.
Well, Mayor, let me just add one thing. Golf course and 20th creates another issue. That's got, you know, you've got some grade coming off the hill there. So you put a stoplight at the bottom of the hill, you're creating, you know, that was brought up in the study. It's a grade difference there. And also a lot of people coming off golf course are going to be turning down 20th. So the same people that are coming down, you're not going to relieve a whole lot that far away. I do agree that these need to be looked at, and these could possibly go in, but I don't agree that it goes in with this project, because this is an ADOT administered project. We all know that, and we all know that ADOT administered projects are inflated, and they cost a lot more to do an ADOT funded, ADOT administered project. I think if we get the infrastructure in there, we're not tearing up the street anymore to put a light in. If we have it in place, we can go back in and bid a project ourselves and do it way cheaper and get it done right and save us some money in the long run, instead of, you know, adding 30, 40, 50% to the cost to put it in with this project.
And I like what you said, that, in other words, we get the infrastructure put in underground, that you would then say, hey, okay, we can do it in-house.
Well, it wouldn't be in-house, but we would bid it out in-house, bid the project, have them come in and install it. I mean, I don't think our guys want to take on traffic signals. We could put up the poles, but
The analysis is going to also suggest to you the placement of possible lights?
yeah, this already
Where
had the
to
placement as far as the intersections.
Yeah, where, not, because we know we need them.
Yeah.
We don't need analysis for that. But you're talking about the placement of them is what you also want to see.
Placement in the intersection
Yeah,
itself.
because you said coming down the slope, you weren't necessarily, you were hesitant on one on Golf Course Road because of the slope. So you may want one somewhere else, I don't know.
Well, ultimately, we would want one, like the mayor said, down there, if there's another care facility come in, and
There is.
ultimately, if we have a crossroad coming from 14th, somehow getting over to 20th, we may want another controlled intersection there where those come together, and I don't know where that would happen in the future, but ultimately, we would want a controlled intersection if we could make it happen at a T in the future, and that would be another location, and ultimately, it'd help get pedestrians across the road too. I know that's another big concern that we have, is getting pedestrians across 20th when we do this full section.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure, the study isn't just counting cars, of course.
No, it's not.
Coming from, because, the high school they have their rushes at certain time, but there's also an emotional study that needs to be considered in there. There's people in there with high emotions that aren't paying as much attention. They've either just had a birth at the hospital or somebody passed. They're leaving the dentist office under pain. They left the assisted living area up there where people are hospice. Their mindset in that area is a little different. You know, they've left the eye doctor down by the railroad tracks and they're still driving with their eyes dilated. There's more to it than counting cars in that area.
Yep.
So I'm just pointing that out also.
You know, at this time, a specific location for the light hasn't been determined.
Well,
Or you're talking about,
the specific location would be Relation and 20th or Golf Course and 20th or both.
Okay.
That's what we're looking at right now.
Okay, good.
I agree with getting the project done too, though, Mr. Henry. That 4 lanes is gonna be quite a challenge too, so I'm hoping the citizens got our attention.
It's gonna be a challenging project, that's for sure. Any other questions?
Anybody else have anything else? Okay, thank you, Ben. Brings us to item 12.2. Before you start, John, Dr. Phelps, do you want to come to the podium now, or do you want to wait until we hear the opening statements? Or,
After.
Huh?
After, please.
Okay. John, will you go ahead and update us on item 12.2, please?
Sure, Mayor, members of council, the animal clinic code options item is on there as staff is seeking some additional direction. As we know, we've been having ongoing conversations regarding the animal clinic and trying to get that facility underway. Most recently, Mayor Couts and Councilman McGoy talked with me about some additional options within the zone for stabling and kenneling of animals, which set in motion a series of conversations that the councilman, myself, and Susan had. And as a result of those conversations, we came up not only with language addressing those particular issues, but we made some other text changes within the existing code. Those changes were advertised in the paper so that those changes are on their way to the Planning and Zoning Commission for December 21st meeting. In the process of having those conversations, we had some additional conversations seeking other options, including appeals and so on, in terms of trying to figure out a way that we could get this project up and running. So given the diversity of options that we're looking at, and the fact that we currently have what I will call a vehicle that is in the process of going before the Planning and Zoning Commission, I thought it might be useful for us to try to get a sense of what exactly are we shooting for at this point. And we've got some text amendments, and Susan has some information she can speak particularly to particular aspects of it. But I just want to get a sense of where is the council going, or is there some additional things that you would like us to do? What is it that council seeks for us to do, given where we are today and where we would like to be, so that we can maybe incorporate that into this meeting on the 21st. Not all of it may be able to be incorporated. We may have to pursue some other options, but I won't know that until I really get a sense of exactly what is it we're trying to accomplish, and specifically what changes should we as staff be pursuing.
Okay, would you update us to tell us where this proposed animal clinic is, because I don't know where it's going.
Do you want to update them on where the language changes we discussed?
I think the address is 380 Entertainment, next to the Victory Theater. It's the old Swings and Things property.
Okay. Dr. Phelps, would you like to address the council at this time?
Sure.
Dr. Phelps, when you come up, would you please state your name and your address, please, and then, of course, you know the countdown will start.
Dr. J.A. Phelps, 629 P.O. Box 629, Sonoyta, Arizona. And as all of you know, I've been trying to get this going for 22 months now. It should have been a 5-minute problem. It's turned into 22 months. I'm a little frustrated. And the city attorney, the one that you pay to represent you, recommends that we completely repeal the text amendments that have been put in place after I had already started this process, which I should have been grandfathered in and ignored all that in the first place. But he suggests just repealing that text amendment and starting all over. And I'm all for that, because I'm worse off now than when I very first started this thing. And this has gotten ridiculous. All of the time consumption that it takes to put in new text amendments and all of that kind of stuff is just that much longer. You're going to starve me to death before you do anything? You're going to let me in business here? Because, you know, frankly, we've about had it. And it hadn't been right. You know, being ignored by the council for 18 months. And now I find out, I went in to get the file on all of this. And from February 2019 to July 2020 has disappeared. City no longer has it. Just planning and zoning doesn't have it anymore. Don't know where it went, don't know what was in there, but it's gone. That's a little suspicious. And then I was misdirected by planning and zoning to go to the Board of Adjustment. They sent me to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And they acted like they were Board of Adjustment and just kind of kicked me out of there, scolded me, and run me off. So the way I've been treated by the city of Safford, I think it's about time we straighten this out, repeal that ridiculous amendment, and start over. It's a simple process, and I will apply again. I've already applied again, and once I'm turned down, then I will appeal to the real Board of Adjustment this time, and we can decide the issue and get this over with, so I can either build my hospital. It's not a clinic, it's a hospital. I can either build my hospital or I can move on. And I have 2 minutes left. One of the people that wants to look at my property to buy it asked about the length of the runway, how big a plane that you guys could land. So the airport is important. I love the city lights, the Christmas lights. That's the most fantastic thing I've seen in a town in ages. But to find out that there's a dope shop that has a drugged Santa in the window, I mean, my thought would be to organize a lynch party soon. So I still have 2 minutes, but that's about all I need to say.
All right, Doc, well, thank you, and I want you to understand as well as Sid, as well as this, the council. When I chatted with the city attorney, I told him I want to get Dr. Phelps's clinic moving along. What's it going to take? And that's when he came and he told me that we need, then you need to repeal the text amendment and start basically all over. That's what I understand. I don't think I'm speaking out of context, but I believe that that's what I heard from him.
Mayor Couts, my discussions with the city attorney did not coincide with that.
Okay, explain to me what
I think the issue is that when we repeal, right, that portion of the code that added large animal clinics to it, it doesn't address several other issues. For example, having a residence in C2, that won't address it. The additional language that we put in place, so for example, kenneling and stabling of animals, disjoined from the surgical recovery process, none of that will be in there. So if we repeal all that language, you really don't solve those issues. And so, and that really was the conversation that I ended up having with the city attorney. And so that's why I think we were pursuing the text amendments to try and broaden the scope of it and give you more options. I think the issue that keeps coming back around and that keeps being a sticking point is what can be done in C2 versus what can be done in agricultural. So if we go ag, you can do everything you want to do just by rezoning the property, allowing these text amendments to go forward. You get your kennels, you get your stables, you get everything that is desired simply by rezoning the property to agricultural. That's the fastest route. If you want to go a different route and repeal and start over, you can, but again, you haven't addressed any of those other issues.
Okay, so from my conversations, and that's why I asked this to be on the agenda so you guys could all get filled in, is at this time, Dr. Phelps wants to start completely over. He's not asking for a residence, so that takes that away. He's not asking to kennel, so that takes that away. He wants to start completely over, and he wants to understand if his animal hospital, which the text amendment which we passed specifically stopped a large animal hospital and a small, in other words, it defined the difference between the two, correct?
Correct.
And so that's what we addressed. So prior to Dr. Phelps coming in and asking for an application, which at that time he was denied, was he denied?
Susan would have to answer that question.
Was he ever denied? Susan?
No, he never came in with an actual,
Okay. So,
it never went through.
it never was approved?
There was never anything submitted for me to deny.
Okay, so when all of this started back in 2019, and then all of a sudden when we get to the middle of 2019, all of a sudden we need to do a text amendment from a small. We got to define the difference between an animal hospital from a large breed to a small breed. And if you were to ask me today, what do I think of an animal hospital? I'm like, an animal hospital is an animal hospital. I didn't know that he had to be certified in large breed animals or he had to be certified in small breed animals to conduct business. I thought it was all the same thing. And so if you ask me, is it a like business? Absolutely, it's a like business. If you can operate on a horse, as you can operate on a dog. I even asked the doc at that time, I said, is your license when you went and applied for one separate? Did you have to go to school to learn how to do surgery on an animal, on a horse? And did you have to then test out of that? And then did you have to go test out of a small dog? He said, it's all the same. So I see it as a like business, and I think that's all he's trying to do. And is saying, okay, do we as a council want to bring back, to do away with the text amendment that was written, and then start all over on an animal clinic, which at that time he would have to ask for, is it a like business? And we'd have to come before the Board of Adjustments and address whether we feel it's a like business or not. I mean, I think that the whole thing, which I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to grab around this. Back in one day, we allow an airport facility to build a 10,000 square foot over here without sprinkling it, and it was made in-house. It was made by staff. Then all of a sudden, we got a gentleman comes in and applies for an animal hospital, which I feel is way out of the way. It's not on highway frontage. It's way out of the way. In fact, most of the property, a good percentage of the property is in floodplain, and yet we say, no, it's not a good place for him to be. That's just how I feel. So I think with my conversations with Doc, and I know that his time's up, and I don't want him to chime in too much more, but he wants to start completely all over as if it was a fresh thing without the text amendment. Doc, am I speaking out of context? Give me just a few quick answers, yes or no.
No. And as a matter of fact, the city attorney told me the same thing that you said here tonight. And then if I was never denied, how did I get put on the agenda to go to what I was told was the Board of Adjustment, the Planning and Zoning Committee? And that meeting was September 19th of 2019. And they discussed this. So how have I not been denied when I have all the proof in the world? You know, the file can be lost. You can disappear that file, but the record of that meeting is there, and I have plenty of emails to prove I was denied back then. So I'm getting a little offended by some of it. But no, the text amendment that I believe Mr. McGoy has been, the new one that they're proposing that Mr. McGoy has been involved in, is very good.
Okay, now hang on,
I
Doc.
do understand
I gotta
that
stop
you
you on that.
do
That's
need
only
that.
under ag. That's only under ag. That's not under C, unless I'm wrong. Am I wrong?
No.
So the new text amendment that is being presented is only under ag, correct?
As it regards stables and kennels, but there's also, and again, Susan can come up and address this issue, but there's also verbiage in there to redefine and do away with the difference between large and small animals as a designation for the hospital. So that's in there. And I believe also to get rid of the conditional use permit in C2, because now you've got just an animal clinic, or an animal hospital, my apologies. So now you have one issue, no conditional use permit. And then the other ancillary activities, yes, are in ag, including both stabling and kenneling as a standalone activity. Now, if they're tied to the animal hospital for short-term recovery, then you're okay. But if you want to add, and again, my understanding was, and forgive me, I apologize, I thought we were looking at the long-term as a standalone activity, and that would be an ag.
Okay. Councilman McGoy, can you help me?
Well, I was under the impression that we had written, the reason we don't want to change the C2 to allow the large animal, I mean, C2 is your downtown stuff. That doesn't belong downtown. But I can see pet grooming, small animals, makes sense downtown. Where he's at is not downtown.
Right.
But he would have to, as this change, this text amendment went through in the ag, he would also have to rezone to ag, and then at the same time, almost simultaneously, I think, probably at the same meeting, the change to the ordinance, the text amendment to the ordinance and his zone change would go through, and I thought that was the fastest way through. If it's not, see, I'm thinking that if we back up and start over, we're adding 2 months to what we've already started. If he will, if the doctor will just say, yes, go ahead and rezone my property, because he has an application in, if I'm not mistaken.
Not for
But it's
rezone.
been on hold. That, it's not there?
I was going to rezone the back half of the property that's in the floodplain only. I did a parcel split, and I was going to leave the front part C2 and then rezone the back half.
But because the split has never been recorded, so
Right.
it isn't effective.
Right.
So rather than just rezone the back, throw the split out and rezone the whole thing. And the way I understood what we wrote, he could do everything he's asked to do in ag, including the house if he ever wanted to, including everything he's asked for would be available in ag as long as he had 5 acres or larger as a parcel.
That's correct.
And that was thrown in there so that it doesn't happen in the middle of town. We don't change, if we back up and throw out everything that happened, then to fix his, we got to affect what happens downtown. We're changing the rules for everybody in downtown. Whereas all we're changing is the rules for people with 5 acres or larger parcels in ag, if we do go this route. The truth, I mean, what works best, this seemed the fastest way to me. It may not be, I don't know. I can't in my mind figure out how many steps there are to get him back to where he wants if we just throw this out. Because if we throw it out, he's still not compliant. And I don't know how long it takes to get there.
And so what do you, Steve, help explain to me, what do you mean by incompliant?
Well, he wouldn't, I mean, there are some things that he would be able to do, but there's still some that he wouldn't, and he would have to either get a conditional use or he's still gonna have to make some sort of an arrangement, however you want to, he's still gonna have to go through the process of going to the planning and zoning and then going back to us to get something else. Even if we do that, he's still gotta go through to get a couple other things he wants. Whereas if we continue with the process we started in changing ag to allow these things, all he would have to do is rezone to ag, and it would be faster. But it just seems to me it would be faster. I haven't seen anybody lay out a timetable.
Now, Susan, I have a question for you. Is how difficult is it to leave the CR2 and then we cherry pick?
Mayor, it might be very helpful, Mayor and Council, if you just let me go ahead and do the presentation I have, because I think it's going to clear up
Sure.
a lot of
I didn't know you had a
issues.
presentation. That's good.
This has already been advertised properly. It is going before the Planning and Zoning Commission next Monday. We've delayed releasing our packets to the Planning and Zoning Commission in order to have this conversation with council. And if I can actually start and show you what staff is proposing, based on discussions with Councilman McGoy and also based on discussions with the city manager. See if I can get this to work right. So I'm going to go through these one by one, and first let me hand these out to you so you have something that you can follow along with. This is the presentation. So this is what staff is proposing to bring to the Planning and Zoning Commission on Monday, also with any changes that you wish to add. And so initially what we have is in the AR agricultural residential zone, you have hospital and clinic for small animals, which was added. So the hospital and clinic for small animals was added in, actually took effect in February of 2020. And then also language was added for hospital and clinic for large animals. And staff is proposing that those two items be fully removed and replaced with hospital and clinic for animals. Barns and corrals shall be set back a minimum distance of not less than 20 feet from all exterior property boundaries. So we're completely getting rid of this distinction between large and small animals. Now we're just talking about animal and hospital and clinic for animals in the agricultural zone, and then just the 20-foot setback from the exterior property boundary. This is in process right now and could go to Planning and Zoning Commission on Monday. And then it would come to you on January 11th, and then you would have the first reading of the ordinance and the second reading of the ordinance. So this could be done in the next couple of months.
You're calling it agricultural zone.
Well, I'm going to go through the different districts. So that's the first thing, to completely remove the old language, and then hospital and clinic for animals, barns and corrals, again, setback 20 feet from all exterior property boundaries. Next, in the AR agricultural residential zone, new uses to be added, and this was based on conversations that we've had with Councilman McGoy, and also with a diagram that was submitted by Dr. Phelps. I do want to point out that we do have the full file that Dr. Phelps was referring to. So,
Susan, can you explain to me how we come up with the minimum lot size of 5 acres for kennels?
that was discussed, and Mayor Couts and Councilman McGoy, originally I think there was some conversation of 10 acres, and then I've further reduced that to 5 acres to make it easier. So if I can go through this, so the AR district would be kennels with a minimum lot size of 5 acres, and then all buildings associated with a kennel shall be set back a minimum distance of not less than 20 feet from the exterior property boundaries. Again, we're back to talking about at least set back 20 feet. And then to allow stables in the AR district, neither of these items are permitted uses in the AR district. So stables, and also I'll get to definitions for these that'll help clarify, but so stables with a minimum lot size of 5 acres, that certainly can be changed by council's direction. And again, all buildings associated with the stables shall be set back a minimum distance of not less than 20 feet from exterior property boundaries. So that's the AR district. So now we're talking about the C2 Highway Commercial District. So prior to February of 2020, the C2 Highway Commercial District did allow hospital and clinic for small animals. That was listed as a permitted use in that district. And staff added the hospital and clinic for large animals as a conditional use permit, and I was directed by the city manager at that time to do this as a conditional use permit. So this is not something that just staff did on my own, but I was directed by the city manager at that time. And staff is now proposing that that language all be removed, and that in the C2 highway commercial, you would have a permitted use of hospital and clinic for animals, and then barns and corrals shall be set back a minimum distance of not less than 20 feet from all exterior property boundaries. And we'll go back and forth with these if you want to interject and add to it. Also, in February of 2020, we have definitions, both for a hospital and clinic for small animals and a hospital and clinic for large animals. And I want to point out, at that time, it was also part of the definition that stated, along with the boarding of such animals limited to short-term care. Staff is proposing that those definitions be completely removed and that these new definitions be added. So you have a hospital and clinic for animals. Again, we're not differentiating between large and small. Means a facility for the diagnosis, medical, and surgical treatment of animals by a licensed doctor of veterinary medicine, along with the boarding of such animals. Also, a definition to be added for kennel means the commercial boarding, grooming, training, breeding, and sale of dogs, cats, and other small animals. And then stable means the commercial boarding of large animals, including barns, stables, corrals, riding arenas, animal training, and riding lessons. And some of that came through with conversations with Dr. Phelps in the past. So for council to clearly understand what staff is proposing to bring before the Planning and Zoning Commission would be to repeal the majority of this language and then modify it and add hospital and clinic for animals to both the C2 district and the AR district, the agricultural residential district, and then to add kennel and stable to the AR agricultural residential district. And I can move back and forth through these slides. Also, you have a hard copy of those. Be happy to discuss this further with you. I just want to emphasize, this is already in motion. The advertising's been done.
Me personally, I like what you have here, but I want to ask you, I just want to ask you a question. What's the purpose behind the 5 acres? What?
So that this can't be downtown, because there aren't any large part. I mean, originally I threw out 10 acres, but then looking at his split, I think he ends up with 9 and something. So that's when I said, let's drop down so he can still do his split if he wants to.
Okay.
Because I thought 10 acres made sense, but then I started looking at how many parcels are in the city that are big enough to do that on, and there's only about 3 or 4 that, other than something that's already had a subdivision platted on it at one time and not built or something.
Perfect. Councilman, go ahead. Applaud you for stepping up to the plate and helping out.
But it really comes back to, I mean, if the doctor doesn't feel like this is gonna get him where he wants to go, I mean, because he has to play along. If he doesn't do the rezone to, at least of the back, to agricultural or AR, it doesn't get us anywhere. So, but he could start that right now and be done about the same time we're done changing the language.
Okay, so understanding also, Susan, help me understand the zoning ordinance you're proposing to be changed, the C2 highway commercial. So that's already been in the motion as well. So would we still have to repeal the text amendment that previous to do this, or this will automatically, the language will automatically change?
This, you do not have to repeal what was already there. This is part of a text amendment. You're striking through and eliminating certain language, and you're adding other language.
Okay, and so this is in the C2. So, so that's in the process of being done as well. And then you'll be coming back to us, let's say in January, we're to be in January, or we'll be in February. I mean, of course, you're going to go to planning and zoning, they're going to hear it, and they're going to probably like this, and then you're going to come back to us. And will you come back to us in January on this?
Yes, it's already advertised for your January 11th meeting.
Okay, and then the moment that, if we like this, then it's another text amendment, right? So there's this one text amendment, and then it just defines down here with the new text amendment?
It's all part of the same thing. So
Okay.
it's all part of, there's not two separate meetings. Basically, what you'll have is you'll have a public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting next Monday. They'll make a recommendation to City Council. Then on January 11th, City Council will hold a public hearing on these items of how we're changing. We're striking through and removing language, and we're adding additional language. And then after that public hearing, then there'll be the first reading of the ordinance with those changes.
That's on January 11th.
January 11th,
Okay.
and then the following meeting will be the second reading of the ordinance with these changes, and then that ordinance takes effect 30 days later.
So by,
Early February, this would be done.
and
I'm sorry,
March.
I don't know the date of the second council meeting, the 11th, so the 20, was it?
So it'll be done by the end of February. So February 25th is when it would take effect if you guys approve it at the January 25th meeting.
And this includes changes both for the C2 district and the AR district.
Just had a question, Susan, and it's probably in here that I'm just not understanding it, but in the AR district, you listed a 5-acre minimum lot size. In the C2, it looks like they have the ability to do the same things, basically, with respect to animal hospital, kennels, and that type of thing. But I don't see any minimum lot size listed on the information that you gave us.
No, there is none, and that's part of why we're having this conversation. If that's something that City Council would like to see added, it's certainly something that can be added prior to this going before the Planning and Zoning Commission on Monday.
I think when Councilman McGoy was speaking, he said that, part of the reason for the acreage was that looking around the area, there's not many lots that would be of that size. And so, if we don't put some kind of a lot size, then in reality, they could spring up pretty well anywhere they wanted to in the district. Maybe I'm misinterpreting.
No, it's a good possibility, because in my head, I was thinking he'd leave it all and go AR with all of it, and I didn't look at what there is available in the C2 district for size, so you're right, that could happen to us.
But you're familiar with his operation, his land, his property.
Right.
So he would still have 5 acres. If he still splits it, he would have at least 5 acres in each of those, is that correct?
I don't think the way he split it, he has 5 acres in the front. I think he has 9 and 3, is that correct?
9 and 5.4.
Okay, then he's good either way then.
So if we added the language of 5
that,
acres in the C2, then he would still be able to do what he wanted to do and
Yes, that's the only point I wanted to make. As currently written, the 5-acre only applies to ag because that's the only location for kennels and stables, correct?
Yes, the 5 acre is only for kennels and stables,
And
not
that's
for
ag.
animal clinics, hospitals and animal clinics.
Right, but if we're adding language for the C2, I think it would be good to have some kind of a maximum or a minimum lot size for that as well, or we could have things cropping up all over the place that would still be able to kennel, stable, and do all those other types of things.
So
that was my only concern.
So Mayor Couts and Councilman Seal, so that certainly can change. If you wish, staff can add language that you can have a hospital and clinic for animals in the C2 zone with a minimum 5 acre lot.
Well, the way it's
think
stated
that's
right now,
gonna-
you could already have it. It looks like if we change it.
But if you ask for a 5 acre minimum in C2 for an animal hospital, I mean, your C2 is 15,000 square foot storefronts have, I mean, let's see. They could have a small animal clinic in a storefront right now. If you give them a 5 acre minimum, they're gonna have to go buy extra ground to do goldfish.
But I guess my concern was that also in that language, it mentions stables and kennels and those types of things. And I guess I'm okay with it if that's what we want. I'm just curious as to.
If those are only available in ag.
Yeah, that's the key point here, is that those two items are only available in ag. They're not available in C2.
Oh, so in his condition, they'd have to be toward the rear of the property, but not the rear third of the property.
If he rezones the rear third to ag,
Right.
yeah.
So, Mayor and Council, so I have an application for a lot split that I've already approved, and it's up to Dr. Phelps to take that to the county and record it for it to take effect. I have an application from Dr. Phelps to rezone his property from C2 to AR that came in August, I think, 28th, and he told Amber Hogel at that time to hold off and not do anything with that, but that's for rezoning the entire property. So what staff would recommend in this particular situation is to move forward with these text amendments and then have Dr. Phelps actually record his lot split and then go through the rezoning process where the front part of the property basically would be a separate standalone lot, and that could be zoned C2, and the rear part of the property would be a separate standalone lot, and that could be rezoned to AR, of course going through the public hearing process with the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council.
Okay, Susan, so your zoning ordinance on the last page does mention quote-unquote kennel. Means a commercial boarding, grooming, training, breeding, and sale of dogs, cats, and other small animals.
Under the definition section, Mayor.
And that would be under C, that would be under C2.
No, Mayor, this last section is a change in the ordinance, basically repealing the language that was in there before under definitions and adding a new, this is just a new definition. This is just a separate section in the zoning ordinance that has definitions. So the hospital and clinic for animals in this particular chapter only has to do with definitions. And then we go to the specific zoning districts where then those.
So you're saying if you're going to kennel, then you're not, you can't do a CR2.
As it's proposed right now, the kennels would only be allowed in the AR agricultural residential district as opposed to in any of the C2 districts would be our highway commercial.
And that brings me to my point originally was, and I kind of got some chuckles when I said cherry pick, meaning location, location, location. Well, when we drive around town and we find this location that's kind of like literally off the beaten path, couldn't we have all of this in the CR2 without affecting our storefronts? Am I addressing anything?
That's really what the 5 acre minimum does, is make it
So that's what,
where it has to be.
and that would put us back to addressing Councilman Sills' question, is if we put a lot size on it, could I still open my goldfish shop on Main Street, but yet if I want a kennel, of course, I have to buy 5 acres, because my new definition, and can I do that on 5 acres, which I think should be allowed. Is that addressing anything?
Well, I think I was confused, and I kind of indicated that before I started. As I read the end of this information that you gave us, I thought we were talking about C2, and I thought that was a continuation on of what was described in C2, but you're telling us that that's merely just definitions. And so I thought that was just a continuation of the C2 conversation that was held earlier.
And that's why you wanted to put an acre lot size on it.
Yes, but if that didn't apply to C2, if it was just definitions, then
You're good.
I felt, and I felt like this was the solution to everything except if we get down to the 11th hour and we've gone through all of this and Dr. Phelps decides to sell and we've changed his zoning to, if it killed his sale, that's the only drawback I can see, is if him zoning the back of it to AR killed the sale of the property. That's the only negative I see to it. But he's a lot smarter than I am, and I guarantee he knows the code better than I do. So
yeah. So Susan, can you tell me why you would be opposed as us putting a 5 acre lot on C2 for an animal clinic, a hospital?
Well, now we're back to large and small, Mayor.
Okay, so-
Again, you know, a small animal hospital and clinic could potentially go into a smaller storefront. It's a different type of use, it's a different type of activity than having horses and cattle and things like that going into a building for, you know, operations and rehabilitation.
I kind of feel like you went around.
Well, because, yeah, so I mean, it's, you can put a size limitation on C2. If you do that, it's certainly gonna restrict it to only certain properties in the city. This code is being written with certain properties in mind.
And I think part of the confusion, Mayor Couts, is that kennels and stables, as presented here, are standalone activities, right? So whether you have an animal hospital or not, you're saying that if you have 5 acres in ag, you can do a kennel or a stable, right? The idea of doing the animal clinic is a separate issue. The only reason that these two items have appeared is because it was an additional use that the applicant was seeking that, as part of our text amendment, we included in there. I think part of the problem that we get concerned with is if we start going with kennels and stables in C2, it may abut properties where it may not be an appropriate use. Now, I don't know how the acreage impacts that, but that's the overall concern. And is there a more surgical way to address the particular property as opposed to applying across the board something like this in C2, where now you're kind of waiting to see, I guess, how it impacts your other C2 areas. That's the real concern there.
Okay, I just felt that I could see stabling, meaning like kind of some of these things that you've listed, but I could see kennel as being part of the hospital.
Well,
I could.
And Mayor Counts, this was the original starting point for all this, right? Because this was where and so I think the idea of the way it had been defined was that our definitions provided for long-term, actual standalone commercial activity, not connected to recovery from a surgical procedure. So you would still have the ability to do these things, it's just the time frames would be shorter. It wouldn't be a standalone long-term where you're just having stables, let's say, as opposed to a stabled animal who's recovering.
All right, so hang on now. Now you're sparking something. So you're saying that in my C2, I can do, if we adopt or we get all this changed, you're saying I can kennel after surgery up to a certain day, which staff or us would make, which would say 30 days.
I think that's where we started.
Yes, and that was a short-term care for recovery, and now we're taking that language completely out. So you can have an animal hospital.
Okay, but that's under ag, though.
That's under both C2, commercial, and ag, that you can have an animal hospital and clinic. And here's the definition of what that is. So it takes out the language of short-term care of animals completely. That's completely out of there. So I'm trying to make this as simple as possible to meet.
How come I'm not getting it then?
But to meet.
Are you saying I'm not simple?
To meet the goals of Dr. Phelps of what he's trying to do with his property, while also protecting the community as a whole. And that's part of the 5-acre minimum for kennels and stables, because there's some properties that are 1-acre ag properties, and right next door there's 5 acres of land there, and you can have a kennel there. And I love dogs as much as anybody does, but you know, they bark at night when they're not happy, and they bark during the day when they're playing together. So they do create a lot of noise, and that can affect other single-family residential properties that are nearby. So that was part of the 5-acre, to not have it on smaller lots, to have it on larger lots, to protect the AR zone residential properties from basically, if you have a kennel, that, you know, the noise that's generated from a kennel. I have maps.
So, Arnold, I haven't heard anything from you.
Yeah, if you guys are confused, you know I am.
I also, can I show you some maps?
Sure.
So what you have before you right now are the parcels in the city that are AR, agriculturally zoned, and they're 5 acres or greater in size. So basically, as this is written, with the 5-acre minimum size requirements, kennels and stables would only be allowed on these particular properties. And I want to distinguish stables as a commercial operation. This does not mean people with their own horses on their own property. It's stables that basically people pay you to take care of your horse on their property. So this is what you have that's 5 acres or greater in the city, an AR zone. And then this is what you have that's 10 acres in the city, AR zone. And I can bounce back and forth that you can see the difference between those two. And this goes back to Councilman McGoy's conversation that we had of debating the 10 acre or should it be less. For C2, commercial, again, now we're not talking about, if you wanted to put an acreage limitation for animal hospitals in the C2, which I haven't put that out, but this shows you the C2 zone properties that are 5 acres or greater in the city, including Dr. Phelps' property, which is to the top right. And then if it was 10 acres or more. So if you wanted to do a limitation for animals, animal hospitals and clinics in C2, and you wanted to add 5 acre minimum to protect other C2 properties, this is what you would wind up where they could be placed.
You have better software than I do. You found a whole lot more than me.
I have good GIS people. You helped me out. So would you like me to go back over just each of these items again?
I guess I'm just stuck on I'm just stuck on C2. If I come in, let's just say this is passed, it's already over with and it's done, and I come in, I tell you that I want to open up an animal hospital, not a clinic, a hospital, and I want to work on everything. In the C2 today, it's already passed. Okay, think that, and I'm going to be able to operate. I'm going to be able to have them sitting in a kennel for 30 days. My horses, my cows, or whatever, they can run around in an arena or some style like that for a maximum of 30 days. But wait, no, you don't have that date on that. On commercial, CR2.
I have it on neither commercial nor AR.
So I can come in and if we said, okay, and I can do surgery, they could run amok, they could do everything they want. And I also said I want to groom at my hospital because I have plenty of area. I want to groom dogs and I want to be able to kennel them.
Mayor, can I interject?
Yes, inject.
'Cause, can I ask the question this way? If today this happened and he's still in C2, what that he wants to do could he not do tomorrow?
Build a house?
Build a house, corral, kennels, and stables, correct?
Correct.
That gives him those 3 things if he moves that he won't have without it.
So he can't do kennels?
Right.
Only in the AR district.
Okay. That's why I guess I'm seeing this all jacked up.
Did that make more sense, though?
Okay.
Of all the things he wants to do, there's still 3 things he can't do if he doesn't go to AR.
So would the council be opposed as having a 5 acre minimum and allowing kennels and stables on 5 acre minimum? Show that page back up there.
In C2 you're talking about?
In C2.
Are you talking about the map?
Yes,
Map?
please. Now
That's 5 acres,
That's 5.
C2. It's only those properties. I know it's hard to see, and the lights are, maybe get the lights a little better. It might help. So those parcels, it's still hard to differentiate them.
Is there parcels in the downtown?
No.
No. Because the reason
Most of that top left parcel is Kai's place, isn't it?
Yeah.
What is the one that's below that?
Give you a little pointer.
I do have a pointer.
Or
So.
Is that
you
is that
talking
the
about
roof
this
of
area?
Walmart, or is that a zone?
That, yes.
Because it's the same color.
It is.
Because Walmart is zoned C2,
Okay.
but it already has a building on
It
it.
already had some, yeah.
So these don't show properties that are just vacant. It shows
So-
all properties.
So would the council have an issue with making a 5-acre minimum for this and allow kennels and stables? So that she could change that? I mean, as you can see, right now, there's only 2 pieces of property, honestly, that could have anything like that on it, unless you annexed a Langley property, which, but even then, you guys have a problem with that.
I've lost track of why you need it. We're just talking about his property, and that, we want to get him off the ground.
He
And that's what
needs
I'd
to
like
be able to
solve right
kennel,
now.
he needs to be able to kennel dogs.
And
He needs
stable.
corrals in order to do like riding lessons or whatever it
He's
has.
not doing the residence anymore, so.
He might.
He might, but he can't if it goes CR2,
If
period,
he-
he can't.
If it's C2, it has to be upstairs.
Upstairs.
Yes, he said a
That's-
while ago
that's
that
why I
he was no
never
longer
went
going
there.
with the residents, so.
Right.
That's why I let that out of there, so. Is any of this C2 helping him achieve what he wants to achieve?
He needs the last 2 items.
Last
It gets
2
him,
items, okay.
it gets him there faster. If he
Yes.
doesn't have to rezone,
It gets him there fast.
it gets him there as soon as this is over.
I'm not opposed to it.
You wouldn't be opposed to a 5-acre minimum and adding the last 2 languages in there, the definitions, into CR2. Hang on, go ahead.
Oh, Mayor, so if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like the direction you're going is to allow kennels and stables with a 5-acre minimum in the C2 district. And then also, it sounds like you want to put a limitation on size or not for animal hospitals and clinics. Right now, as it's written, there's no size requirement.
I don't
Could
think we want size.
you go stables and, in other words, if I come in and like, hey, I want to open up a goldfish shop, I don't need to kennel or stable, so I don't have to have that 5-acre minimum. But if I come to you and I say I'm going to kennel and I'm going to stable, then you're like, yeah, you're a 5-acre minimum.
You need a 5-acre minimum.
Yes, right?
In the AR zone, as this is currently written, and if you want to include it in the C2 zone,
C2, the same
also.
thing.
And
Is that-
al- yes.
Go ahead.
And then also, just know, you can always change this language. If conditions change, down the road in the future, just like we're changing the language right now.
Right.
So you always have that option to come back and revisit this.
And I just think because of the location, that's the key, is the location. And I just think that's, to me, I see an animal hospital as all of this. I really do. I see them, they need to kennel, they've got to take care of them. I'm okay with it. I mean, I'm okay with also, if it makes you feel better, putting a time frame on it, but if not, then that's fine too. So she needs a little bit of, not a vote here, but at least somebody's willing to help me out besides just me and Arnold.
Could
She
I
needs
ask one?
she needs
Go
the
ahead.
direction.
When we started talking, the doctor had a minute and 20 seconds left, and I noticed he stepped up there. If he wants to say something that will change what we're saying here, I think now's the time, because, I mean, if he's hearing something that won't work for him, we need to know it.
Hey, Doc,
No, I think I can help.
minute and 20, you want me to count it?
You're on a roll here, guys. What you're suggesting is even more than I need. I mean, that's great. If a person can put it in there to where because dog kennels and kenneling is common adjunct business along with a small animal hospital. It's very common in Tucson, Phoenix, Cedar Vista, everywhere. So allowing it, if you have 5 acres or more, allowing a kennel along with a small animal hospital is different than just saying you can put a kennel in C2, because truthfully, a kennel doesn't belong in C2. Stables definitely don't belong in C2. Wouldn't need a residence in C2. You can put it in there if you want to, but for my purposes, in the C2 area. All I need is the ability to build the large animal hospital, which she has done, I think, and the dog kennel, like for people going to vacation on Christmas, that sort of thing. Regular kenneling. Everything else, I can divide the back half of my property, have it zoned AR, and do whatever I need to back there.
All right, are we good with that?
So,
That's where I'm
All right.
hoping we were headed.
Susan, I hope you heard everything he said, and you're gonna write it just like that.
It's been recorded.
It's been recorded.
okay.
And I
So-
hope you go through with it, Doctor.
So if I may, because now I'm confused.
Uh-oh. Finally! I'm not.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing from Dr. Phelps is he would like to see animal hospitals and clinics in the C2 district that also allow kenneling and stabling of animals as ancillary or part of the animal hospital.
I think
Is
he
that-
said boarding.
If you have more than 5 acres.
5 acres.
Yeah. Fine.
Which is what we were saying.
Right.
And basically, so, and that could be, that language doesn't have to necessarily be tied to the animal hospital, but you can have multiple uses on a piece of property. So it can be written as,
Now, is that true? You guys, hang on.
Yes.
I like what you're pointing out. Do we want it to specifically to animal hospital?
Well,
Because, he said well. Go ahead.
I can see both sides of that, but if you don't make it contingent to being with the animal hospital, you're gonna get them spring up all
Right,
over.
that's why I said we should probably put it in that lingo that it has to be, because what you said earlier is you barking dogs at night or whatever. So I think that, I agree, right? You guys agree that we should tie it in with the hospital?
Yeah.
Okay, is that okay, Susan?
for the C2 district.
Yes,
Do you still want to leave it in there for the AR district
I think we should.
with the
Yeah.
5 acre minimum?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think I got it.
all right. John, do you got it?
Yes, I think I do.
Don't laugh.
No,
Okay.
it's been a
All
long
right.
haul.
we needed this conversation a long time ago.
Yeah, perfect, thank you. And, Doc, sometimes they say good things come to those who wait. Okay, Susan, thank you for continuing to work with it. Thank you for Councilman McCoy as well. And sometimes that's what it takes is getting different eyes on different things and stuff. And ultimately, we've come to an agreement, which I think works. You had some good points in there, and everything got massaged right, and we're gonna make this happen. Thank you, thank you.
And this will be before you on January 11th.
Thank
So
you.
hopefully I have the language correct, but if not,
Okay.
there can be additional
Got two
changes
more. Hang on,
made.
we got-
I just had a question. When we start talking about the C2 zoning, and I think the mayor kind of alluded to this, and something I had thought about, that along with the boarding of such animals, limited short-term care. And I don't really like insurance companies telling people how long they can stay in the hospital, because the doctor's the one that needs to be able to make that decision. But I think we need to have some type of language in there that determines what short-term care.
So Mayor Couts and Councilman Seal, staff is proposing to take that language out completely.
Okay, so that would be gone.
It's completely gone.
Okay.
How long they need to be there.
And Councilman Lopez,
I'm good.
you no more confused? We got this. Mike?
I'm trusted in you.
Huh?
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm still not sure, but I'll
Wait.
get with Tammy to review the last part.
Yeah, I think we got it.
All right. I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving right along. Tammy?
Mayor and council members, I brought forth to you the November 23rd minutes for approval for the council meeting. Anybody have any questions on
Vice
it?
Mayor?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Budget authority change. Alma?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I have for you the cleanup action that is necessary to comply with the state budget laws. Basically, we're aligning the budget appropriation with actual expenditures. The action does not change the overall amount, so I do want to just, I know it's really small here, but I'm going to zoom into the totals. And the original budget amount and the final budget amount are exactly the same. So this is just reappropriating the budget amounts to our actual expenditures. Also on this is just a summary of the actual division departments that were over budget for fiscal year 2020. This is the year that's being currently audited. If you have any questions, I can answer any of your questions on these. I do want to point out the first one, City Council, that is the highest one, and that one basically is due to the bed tax revenues being higher than anticipated. So that actually is a good thing. So some of those revenues are expensed out and given to the chamber. So.
I move we approve the changes.
Second.
Any discussion? Go ahead on.
I'm just, you have two figures on your cover sheet, and you've used 60,350,000, and then down below in the next paragraph, you're saying 63.5. I don't know which one of those numbers, I think they come under the same definition.
They do. I apologize for that, Council. Mayor and Council, I believe the total is 60,000,035. It's the 60.35 in the first paragraph, but I will confirm that and send out an email to confirm that. But it is, so this on the board that I'm actually showing you is just the general fund, the departments. All of the other funds were all within their budget authority, and so no changes needed to be done for those. So this, what I'm showing, is specifically within the general fund. When I stated in my council communication form, I did have the amount for the total budget, and I do believe, off the top of my head, I believe it's the 60,350,000. But I will confirm that and send you an email with that grand total.
You'll find that other 3 million. Okay.
And I won't assume anything. I will confirm that and send you a.
Okay, ma'am.
I have a motion and a second. One more discussion is on the city council. Is there any way that we can have a lot of these numbers taken off and have them in their own little
category?
Division,
Mayor?
yeah, category or something?
So you want within your
I can
department?
tell you what, our budget's not no $415,000, you know. I know we pay out a lot, we do a lot to different things by paying the utilities at the Boys and Girls Club. If I'm not mistaken, that comes out of our budget as well, correct?
Correct, Mayor.
And so I think that that's something that we might want to look at come next year during our budget cycle, if we can have those itemized or have it out and maybe subsectioned off of it.
Okay.
Where people can actually pull up the city council and see what their actual budgeted items are, and then also you can have A, B, and C, which we contribute to, and you can say we contribute to those or something like that.
Yes. Okay, Mayor, this is an action or an item that I bring every year, and so I can provide more detail when I bring this specific item so that you can see
Well, I know that
what the line items are.
We do, but I think that to me, it looks really, really bad when our budget's $415,000. Councilman Seal?
Scary, but I was gonna bring up that same, we're on the same wave.
Well, that don't happen very often. I'm gonna write that down.
But I would like to see exactly how much we spend, as a council. That includes travel, all the things that we do. I would like to see just a separate line item there that shows what we've spent for training, for travel, for all the things that we do, and rather than have everything lumped into it that we contribute to on the side. So
yes.
Is that kind of, because I would like to see it. Not
Mayor,
only the
Councilman
public,
Seal.
I would like to.
Yes, that is correct. There are some other items and line items within that 415,000. I can break that out and email it, and then going forward, I will ensure that I do provide that in the council packet as well, so that you can see that breakout.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Ordinances 13, 1, 2, and 3, we can take all at once. Oh, no, we can't, sorry. My bad. Ordinance, Susan, ordinance 020-11.
Mayor and Council, this is the first reading of ordinance number 020-011, an ordinance of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, annexing Graham County Assessor's Parcel number 101-14-003E.
Move to approve.
First reading.
First reading.
Oh, it says action, so
Yeah, it says action.
Tammy, would you go ahead and read it?
Yep.
that's the action we need.
There you go.
Ordinance number 020011, an ordinance of the City of Safford extending and increasing the corporate limits of the City of Safford, Graham County, State of Arizona, pursuant to Arizona Revised Statutes Title 9, Chapter 4, Article 7, by annexing certain territory contiguous to the City of Safford.
Okay, perfect.
I just want to ask,
Go ahead.
when you write these, and then I look at them again, could you possibly add the address of where we're talking about in here again, in this note also, so it can remind me where we're talking about? Because, parcel number 101-1403, we talked about it a while ago, and I've lost track of what the actual address is.
So Mayor Couts and Councilman Lopez, we don't assign addresses till we get a building permit. So that property actually, or if a building had been torn down and the property is vacant. So we actually don't have an address for that property. That's why I say it's south of, I think it was 1615, which is Seacus?
That would be fine by me. That's an
Oh,
address to me.
in the ordinance, I see what you're saying,
That's
okay,
the old
because,
ideal.
In what I'm reading here,
Sure.
it'll remind me again what we talked about.
and also just to bring it helps a little bit, it's not the greatest map, but there is a
Yeah.
map on the very last page, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it helps
Sure.
shorten my study a little bit.
Okay, be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, Susan, you got ordinance 2012?
Yes, so this is a first reading of ordinance 020-012, an ordinance of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, rezoning Graham County Assessors Parcel Number 101-14-003E from Graham County General A Land Use to City of Safford AR Agricultural Residential.
Read it.
Is it a first reading?
Oh, first reading? I got all checked up.
Ordinance number 020012, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, effectuating a map amendment rezoning Graham County Assessors Parcel number 101-14-003E from Graham County General A Land Use to City of Safford AR Agricultural Residential.
Thank you. That was, all right. Ordinance 2015, Mr. Holschel.
This one is a second reading. Mayor, members of council, this is second reading of ordinance number 2015, an ordinance of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, adding Title 8, Chapter 8.09 graffiti.
So move.
You have a motion.
It's a second reading.
It's a second reading.
Okay.
So we don't
Okay.
go on it, but, do we talk about some of the stuff that's in here still?
Yeah, talk about it. Well, I don't know if you can change it if it's second reading.
Well,
We changed it as a result of
Right.
the first reading,
Right.
so.
well, it's still somewhat, I was hoping not to have fines. We're charging victims still, and we can charge them up to $300 per incident. That's still in there. I thought we were decided not to get into that. And then two, I see in removal by the city. And I know we said that we would do it, we would offer to do it. But there's no limit on how much we're willing to spend. I would like to see a ceiling on it, What if something comes up to be $30,000? There's no ceiling on it.
Mayor
Where do we stop?
Councilman Lopez, we're talking about graffiti abatement, so it would be highly unlikely that we would reach that level, but, again, that's part of the program. We could put some kind of cap in there, but it would be somewhat arbitrary.
Because the graffiti could be somebody scratching the wall, etching it, stuff like that. And we might get into lots and lots of money. And so just for the safeguard, shouldn't we have a cap on it?
Mayor, Councilman Lopez, we could certainly put a cap on there if you would like.
Well, I'm asking, do you think we should, you know?
In my opinion, I don't think under the program that we're dealing with that it would be necessary.
Okay,
Yeah,
because you're hoping it's just graffiti and nobody would come along and say, all this that happened to my building is graffiti.
Right.
Can you guys
Most it
rebuild
can
this wall
cost us
for
is a
me?
paid code, isn't it?
Yeah,
Okay.
Mayor, Councilman Lopez, we have definitions in there regarding what graffiti
Okay.
would be, so
Good.
it somewhat limits what's
All
available.
right, as long as we're covered.
Right.
Okay.
And to address your other point, which is the fines, the reason we did take out any kind of legal action that could be perpetrated against the person who was tagged, we did leave fines in there only on the premise that if we ran into a situation where someone was unwilling to remove the graffiti, that we wanted to have some level of enforcement. Now, again, we don't always enforce to the fullest extent possible, but I think that we need to have some kind of leverage in there so that if it's not being removed, that we have some way of incentivizing them to, because remember, we're offering to do it for free, first and foremost. So if we offer to do it for free and then it remains there, one of the issues with graffiti is that you want it to be removed in a fairly timely fashion. So we could make that adjustment, but again, there has to be some kind of leverage if we run into an unusual situation where, for whatever reason, someone is not removing the
But
graffiti.
that could be $300 a day.
Could be.
So,
Councilman
you know,
Seal?
Yeah, I have just maybe a suggestion that might or might not work. I understand that we want it to be removed. First offer is that we will remove it for them. If they will hold us blameless, or however it's worded, if they refuse that, then they would be responsible for removing it. Is there a way we could put in there something to the effect that if it's not removed within 20 days by the owner, that's implied consent for us to come in and remove it and be held blameless for that?
Mayor, Councilman Seal, we had something like that in there, but I think if we get into going on private property where we would literally go in and be power washing somebody's house because they decided to not remove graffiti, I think that might be a bit difficult for us. I think it puts people in a difficult situation because you're going on private property. Now, there are provisions in there for that deal with commercial properties or abandoned properties where we would be able to go in. But in terms of a residence, it would be difficult to just say, we're gonna go on your property if you don't remove this and we're gonna do it for you. I think that would be tough. That would be a tough situation to be in.
we're even gonna put a lien on them.
Yeah, and again, these are provisions that exist within our existing code and they deal with other enforcement issues. We tried to water this one down as much as we could so that we did have some level of enforcement without necessarily having to go on the property. Of course, it puts staff in a tough spot. You know, all of a sudden somebody's power washing the outside of your house and you don't want them there. That could get ugly in a hurry. So we did remove the legal provisions, and we did remove those sections that would allow us on residences to go in and remove it. But we left in place the fine and the lien just to have some level of enforcement to incentivize them to move forward. It's a tough balance.
Yeah, it is.
So you guys like it as it's written, or do you guys want to change the?
I've made a suggestion before and it's still in here.
But
I'm just one vote.
Well, but
The
I-
rest is up to you guys.
Did staff give you the reason, did they give you enough reason why they felt that it needed to stay in?
Incentive.
Okay,
That's what they said, incentive to get them to do it.
and that didn't help any? I'm trying to,
Well, no, this is the victim.
right?
So, you know, I mean, if, we're gonna find out if it's gonna work or not, I think, the way things are going, but it's just,
I hope
I don't
it
know.
stops going.
it just,
Hope they
I
catch
don't know.
that turd.
Somebody's a victim and they're gonna get fined. Or they're gonna have a lien put against them.
Kind of think it goes along the line of, there's no fines being given for not wearing a mask, so I don't know.
Yeah, that was one of my
I was
examples.
very reluctant to say that, but I'll definitely probably make the paper tomorrow.
Yeah, it's in there. So that's what I had to say, so that's done.
I like it the way it is myself.
So that's the,
It doesn't say we have to find them, it says we can.
Okay,
all right, this is just the second reading. We okay?
Yeah.
All right. Tammy? Second reading. We don't, no vote on it, right?
No, its second reading is for approval.
Okay, we have a motion by
final.
Vice Mayor,
Second.
and we have a second by Councilman McGoy. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Hochul. Item 14.1, Resolution R2030.
30?
Can I do any of the resolutions together, Tammy?
So resolution 33 through 36 can all be one
33?
vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Hochul, on the 2030.
In accompanance of the graffiti ordinance, there's the graffiti resolution, and this is a request for the mayor and council to adopt resolution number R20-030, a resolution adopting graffiti violation fees.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Resolution 2032, Mrs. Anderson.
Mayor and council, this is resolution number R20-032, a resolution authorizing and establishing facility rental fees, equipment rental fees, and special event fees for the city of Safford. We've been charging these same fees for at least 10 years. I haven't been here that long, but I talked to Pam Frost, who's been doing that particular position for at least 10 years. And so during this process of creating the rate and fee schedule for the city of Safford, it was brought to staff's attention that these fees had never been actually adopted by council, and that's what this resolution is for.
I'll move we approve resolution R20-032.
Motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now I can do some together, right?
Yeah.
Lance, you're going with the next, all the way down to 36.
Yeah, we'll do these all together. Mayor and council, this is a request to review and approve resolutions R2033, R2034, R2035, and R2036, authorizing the city manager to execute 4 grant agreements with Arizona Department of Transportation to assist in funding the design of projects at the airport. These 4 design projects are reconstruction of 826 runway, reconstruction of taxiway C, reconstruction of taxiway D, and reconstruction of the T-hangar apron. All 4 of these projects are in the city's 5-year capital improvement plan, as well as the airport capital improvement plan, or ACIP. Runway 826 was planned for fiscal year 21, and the other 3 projects were planned for fiscal year 22, but moved up to fiscal year 21 due to additional ADOT funding available this year. Reconstruction of runway 826 design is planned to be completed in fiscal year 21, and the other 3 projects will be started in 21, but most likely completed in fiscal year 22. These projects will consist of design for reconstruction of pavement sections that have surpassed their design life, and have shelf-ready plans available when state funds become available for construction. And I've summarized each grant and each share that we would contribute, as well as the ADOT contribution there. The airport consultants' fees for the design of these airport improvement projects will be paid for using state grant funds and city funds as shown in the table, and all 4 of these projects are in the 5-year CIP. As mentioned before, funding for 826 design was approved in the FY21 CIP under the airport, and the other 3 grants were set for funding in FY22, but were approved using city reserves as needed in an October 26 meeting I brought to you for accepting those grants. Staff recommends authorizing these resolutions.
I'll move we approve resolutions number 33, 34, 35, 36.
Have a motion. I believe we all had a chance to look at them over the weekend, right?
Yeah,
Go ahead, you have questions?
I just hope you get some help soon.
Well,
This is a lot of reading, just me going over, and then putting this on the table. Don't know who helps you with this, but I hope you get some help.
I got my second turned down position today, so
Today.
unfortunately, I'm
Okay.
still looking.
Okay, sir. That's all I had.
Okay, I have a motion by Vice Mayor.
Second.
I have a second by Councilman Lopez. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. You want to read all those resolutions in? Or can you just say blah, 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 Amy?
Resolution number R 20-033, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, authorizing the city manager to execute a grant for state funds from the Arizona Department of Transportation for the purpose of aiding and financing a project for design of taxiway D improvements at the Safford Regional Airport. Resolution R 20-034, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, authorizing the city manager to execute a grant for state funds from the Arizona Department of Transportation for the purpose of aiding and financing a project for design of taxiway C improvements at the Safford Regional Airport. Resolution R 20-035, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, authorizing the city manager to execute a grant for state funds from the Arizona Department of Transportation for the purpose of aiding and financing a project for design of taxiway D improvements at the Safford Regional Airport. R 20-036, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, authorizing the city manager to execute a grant for state funds from the Arizona Department of Transportation for the purpose of aiding and financing a project for design of T-hanger apron T-hanger apron improvements at the Safford Regional Airport.
Good? Okay, that's going to bring us to resolution. Go ahead.
I mean, I think you read taxiway D twice in there.
Oh, did I?
I think resolution 33 was supposed to be for runway 826.
Yes, sorry, I apologize for the runway
So,
826
yeah.
for 33.
That's your first mistake all year, Tammy? That's not too bad.
No, it's
No?
not. We're being honest.
Resolution 2037. John?
Mayor, members of council, Resolution 2037 seeks to get your approval to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the state of Arizona regarding some opioid litigation. Essentially, the MOU does a couple things. One, it makes us party to that lawsuit when it's brought by the state. I guess there is a movement right now to engage with the manufacturers of these opioids because they know that litigation is coming, and therefore they're kind of trying to head it off at the pass. So they figure they could deal with the state, and then MOUs like this basically put a structure in place where the distribution of the award, once it's made, is pre-structured. So essentially this would go from the state through the counties to us. So the counties, all 15 counties in the state have already signed on to the MOU. This would make us a party to that, which we have to get up to them by tomorrow. But again, it's an MOU, so it's not binding in any way. If we decide that we want to go in a different direction down the road, we can do that. So we're not bound by the effects of this. So again, it does get us in under the wire and makes us at least available to receive funds once they settle their lawsuit.
I move we approve resolution R 20-037.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Resolution 2038.
All right, bear with me as I scroll. Okay, Mayor, members of council, Resolution 20-038. This is the item that was raised at the special meeting that we had about the agreement regarding abandonment of water rights. And essentially, what's in the packet here would enter an agreement with the Gila Valley Irrigation District and Franklin Irrigation District, which would basically take approximately 8.25 acres of water rights, which currently reside essentially in the riverbed. So the probability of us being able to access those water rights at any point is very, very minimal. And so as part of an ongoing agreement with the Indian tribes is that if we can accumulate 550 acres to trade, we can then do sever and transfer actions on up to 850 acres of land. I've included in the packet both the abandoned water rights parcels that are in the first map, and then I included also several other maps that show 3 city parcels, each of which would benefit from the sever and transfer of parcels from one area within the parcel to another. And in our initial discussions, it sounded more as though some of these were these irregular shapes that resided within a field. Most of these are moving parcels strategically from one side to the other. 2 of them actually are in a situation where eventually we probably would have litigation, and there is flowage through the parcels that are being severed. So at some point we would probably get challenged legally on that anyway. And then the other one is a large parcel in which they're simply, as we would say, truing up the field. So it's not as much a flowage issue as it is they're taking these disparate parcels that are within the main area and putting them together into one large parcel so that it's easier for them basically to farm. So again, it's been vetted both through our water attorney and our city attorney, and the agreement has as well. At any point, if the 550 acres is not reached, the whole agreement at some point would be voided, and also the fees are being covered by the districts in terms of processing the legal aspect of this. So based on the advice of our council, I think that we would recommend that we move forward with this.
I'll move that we approve resolution R20-038.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second. Councilman Still? Everything looks good to you? Yep. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Lance?
Mayor and Council, this is a request for the City Council to authorize the City Manager to accept CNS Company's proposals to complete the 4 design projects previously discussed at the airport, which include the runway 826 reconstruction, taxiway C reconstruction, taxiway D reconstruction, and the T-hangar apron reconstruction. Staff recommends accepting an award of these proposals. Just a little background. These are the grants that we requested from ADOT for design, which consist of reconstructing these pavement sections that are past their design life. And I did mention that these would be shelf-ready when ADOT funds become available for construction. This also includes federal funds for everything but 826. 826 is our secondary runway, so only grant funds that we can use there would be ADOT funds. The other 3 would be qualified for federal or ADOT funding, so for construction. CNS Companies is the city's on-call planning and engineering or airport planning engineering services contractor, and have provided proposals for these 3 projects. The state also required us to do an independent fee estimate from a third party for a design project over $100,000, which runway 826 was. The city commissioned the IFE from Adams Companies for the design of reconstruction of 826. The firm determined that the runway 826 design, based on the consultant scope of work, would be $176,000, or within 3% of what the CNS's fee was, and it's actually 3% more. I've also provided a table for the grant amount, the consultant's proposed cost, what the city's share would be, as well as ADOT's share. As I mentioned before, the consultant fees would be, for this design, would be paid for using grant funds and city funds as shown in the table. All these 4 projects have been budgeted in our 5-year plan, as mentioned before, and we were authorized in October 26 to use reserves if we needed for the 3 projects that weren't on this fiscal year 21 CIP. Any questions on this?
Any questions? Okay, a motion?
So moved. Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Lease agreement?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, this is a request to approve an addendum to the original lease agreement. I've been here a couple times before. This is for the Catholic Church playground area property. This lease agreement authorizes the city to utilize the property for the playground for the children in that area. City originally entered into this agreement in 2008, renewed for a second 5-year term in 2013, and then in 18 and 19, I brought to you 2 addendums to extend that 1 year while we seeked alternative areas for a park area. Our original intent there was to grab some Prina property and develop a park, and that fell through. So I'm currently started discussions with the Catholic Church of possibly buying a piece of their parcel on the east side of their property, right where First and Second come, where we kind of have a drainage issue. The ditch runs around that corner. It has been brought to the father's attention. I've talked to the ladies in the office, and we'll see where that goes. But that would be I think a nice spot for a retention and a park that we could develop and possibly get some grant funding to do something down there. So I originally brought the last year's addendum. I had a pay rate adjustment schedule that went out through 2023. So this addendum is just extending that contract through the 2023. I've looked at the playground down there. It's getting beat up and it's getting weathered, but I think we can survive for a little while. But this contract addendum also says if we decide that it's wore down and needs to come out, we pull it out and the contract is over. So we do that 30 days, but prior to a renewal. I had that put in the addendum, so if for any reason we decide that we don't want a playground down there, we're going to try and do the other route, and we're not going to put anything in the temporary, we can end this contract. Any questions? That makes sense?
Yeah, I didn't realize the Purina deal had fallen through.
Well, we ran into some issues with, there's title issues with there's a bunch of different names on certain sections of that property, and it was just, the cost was getting pretty extreme with us having to, he was asking us to pay for all the title searches and all that, plus pay for the property on top of that, and it was getting too expensive. And we kind of just let that one go because it was getting too convoluted.
I was kind of hoping when they were doing the House for Hope and Mrs. Shade, that area in there, for a while there, I thought some of that was going to come into play, but it hasn't apparently. So.
Well, my hope is if we can do something on this other side. I mean, that was such a small area, it really you couldn't get a lot there. I think if we can do something on the other side, we can actually develop more like a La Tierra Park.
Yeah,
I think that would be a better use, and hopefully the church is willing. It's just kind of a offside weed catcher they have to maintain the weeds on, and I'm hoping we can get some good negotiation there, so we'll see where it goes.
In the meantime, Mr. Casellas, there's a pole right in the middle of that playground ready for a street light, and one hadn't been put up there yet.
On this Catholic church?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right in the middle of it.
Lance, I also had a request. If we can now, possibly, can we do a little bit more policing around there? I've been told there's some paraphernalia in the playground area.
Got a head shake back here.
Okay.
But we'll also go around and check the
yeah,
grounds. I think that's what you're talking
attention,
about, is
yeah.
checking the playground. Yeah, we'll do that too.
Thank you.
I uses that lack of an engineer as an excuse.
Go ahead, Ron.
I hope a light, street light there will benefit, not encourage anything crazy. I don't know if the chief likes the idea of it now too, but okay, he does, so good. I'd like to see a street light there, please, possibly.
Do you need a goal post? Or a
Backstop.
backstop?
It's not big enough.
Not yet, I know, I got 3 of them, just where to put them I haven't got yet.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
We need to go ahead and make an action item on that, so, for that lease agreement. I heard Vice Mayor, he made the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The B card report, we all have a chance to take a look at that? Any questions on the P card report?
Yeah, I thought we paid for the downtown music twice, I thought. But I lost where one of them was, but I think we paid for downtown music out of two different places, but I'll identify them and, downtown music, yeah, that's where I said, I thought I saw it twice. Oh, I'm just asking if somebody will look into that, because I think
We
we
will.
did it. And also, the library. Do we have any participation anymore with the Dolly Parton program?
Yes, Councilmember Lopez, that comes out of grant funding, so that is actually paid for through grants. So that's why you never see it on the P-card report. But we do have quite a bit of participation,
Yeah,
yes.
I remember Leanne used to be real high on that, and I hadn't seen it, so I wondered if Dolly don't give us money anymore.
No, it's part of our First Things, first funding, and we pay about $4,000 a month between our county and Greenlee County to them to distribute those books.
Damn,
Mhm.
I was wanting money coming in.
See, I think,
I was asking for money coming in, but, okay. That's-
yes, the First Things First grant pays for all of that, so
Okay.
when we pay it, we get the money back for that,
All right.
yes.
Thank you, man. That's all I had punched.
How about the expenses over 5,000?
I have it on, it's 16.3, 5,000, page 271, I believe. Graham County Board of Supervisors, waste tire refund. Now, do we get refunded for that, or is that what we have to pay? Because it's like 13,000, almost 500.
Mayor, Councilman Lopez, that actually is revenues, and so we received that 13,000 for the waste tire fund.
Yeah, so that's coming in.
Correct.
So that mixes me up a little bit, because this is, I'm thinking stuff's going out in this thing, but that's coming in. Because it still
Yes.
has a negative sign after it too.
So all of the purchasing card and the over 5,000 have positive numbers, and your revenue report will have negative numbers, and so that's the revenues that we're receiving. And I'll put those in.
Yeah, because the negatives to me mean negative, you know, so, okay. You'll get me straightened out?
So, Mayor, Councilman Lopez, that actually is an accounting thing, and we use negatives for our revenues.
Oh, okay. I'll try to remember that, ma'am.
Okay.
That answered that.
You're gonna get him confused and
Oh, I am confused.
Revenues over 5,000.
Revenue, okay.
We good?
Yes.
All right, announcement of current events.
We have, it's getting near the end of the year, and then we're gonna have to decide on what special events we're gonna talk about in the future. And so I know that's coming up on the horizon, but because of what, there's been changes going on, and some people downtown association kinda gave me an idea or a warning that they may come up with a couple of extra ones, or, and I don't know if some dropped off or whatever, but that's coming down there too. Haven't seen a report from the chamber in quite some time. And,
We can make that happen.
we used to get one annually, and I haven't heard from them in a while. I know the rest of the council, I've been pushing for somebody to train me on my iPad, and IT has agreed to set up a class, and I was hoping to encourage some of the rest of you, if you need it, so I can get a meeting set up with Sam and see who wants to get in on that training with me.
I'm too far gone myself.
If you offer food, Mike will probably be there.
Oh, yeah, you got that right.
I'll go, you know.
Also, the
I just
upcoming,
sit there like I did in school.
also the upcoming survey, I got mine in by the 14th, and I'm kind of hoping everybody else did too, so we can get a chance to talk among one another in an atmosphere where we can talk to one another. And that's all, sir.
Okay. I have a couple. Anybody else have any? The food traders, you know, those that come in, the reason I'm bringing it up is because of what we charge them as fees. And then they're only allowed to be at a certain location or whatever. They have to fill out their paperwork, and they can only be at that location 10 times. Then they have to move, and they have to reapply again. And I understand possibility of the reasoning behind that was because you're wanting to support your base planted business. I get that. But if your food vendors come here and they stay here quite often, or some of your own locals do, that could get all the way up to over $1,000 a year in just the permit fees. So I would like to just kick it around and see if we're still happy with that amount that we charge the food vendors, or if we want to change it or address it. Okay, Susan?
Yeah, they fall under a temporary use permit application, and our food truck, food vendors, is very restrictive. I don't know if the city council wants to look at that in general. Again, it's for a 48-hour period, only 10 times a year at a given property, then they can move to another property and another property, and then, yes, we do a new temporary use permit for each one. That's something that the city council can look at if you want to not have your food, your mobile food trucks. We could change that process. Also, just be aware that they are seen as competition for the brick and mortar restaurants.
That's correct. That's why I understand the
So it gets a little tricky. So, we do have very restrictive food truck vending policy. So,
maybe just bring it to the council and address what we do have and the cost. Because the other question I would have at that time is when we do a event on Main Street, do they have to apply for that $50, or do they get that special permit when we have a special function on Main Street?
yeah, it's a special event. It's different than just parking on a given piece of property.
Yeah, I would just like to see it. I just know that it was definitely addressed me and made my eyebrows raise a little bit, even though I support brick and mortar. So I just would like to see it.
It's a balance between the two, definitely, absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else? Tammy does. What do you have, Tammy?
I'd just like to take this moment to address the council just regarding the agenda packet. So the process of that agenda packet would be the deadline for any items to be on that packet, within that packet, is the Monday previous of the meeting. And so if any reason I do receive any items after that date, it is going to delay when the agenda goes out as far as the packet process is concerned. So if any council members or even staff, which they're all well aware of this too, of course there's always an exception once in a while, but if we could please receive those items to that deadline, so, for that deadline, that way I can get the agenda packet available to you guys in a timely manner. So just be aware, if I do receive late items, that is going to make you receive the packet at a later date, rather than the date you are requesting for it to be out. Okay?
Okay.
Also, in this IT thing I told you about the iPads, I've been trying to work with Tammy on getting the agenda set up in a format to where we can manipulate it a lot easier. She's already made changes through the past that have already, you might not have even noticed, but it helps a little bit. So that's why I would need your input too, because right now I'm just asking it the way I like it, and because you can see page numbers on it today, and that'll help. It won't be that same page number. It won't be over that page number. She's going to get that straightened out. But it helped me navigate, because there's a lot of reading. So if you have ideas on it that'll be helpful, that's what I'm getting at also.
Who's gonna be at the January 14th meeting, or the 15th, whenever it is? Is staff gonna be there, or is this just council and you?
Yeah, staff and council, just management, staff, and council.
Okay, so IT would be there?
Yeah.
Maybe if that thing went through a breeze, that could be your training night or day.
The training I need to drive you guys crazy. I gotta drive Sam crazy
Okay,
first.
all right, okay. Anything else?
Then we can bring it out at a work session.
Okay. Report on operational items? City have anything?
Mayor counts, no, we don't.
19.
Oh, let's adjourn, let's go home.
You have anything, Steve? Okay.
Nope, you told me to hurry up.
Okay. And Steve seconded.